Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Rambling Night with our very special event going on, Jurassic Tours. Of course, I am your host, Don Casimirian, aka Crystal, my usual co-host, Erica, aka Dark Neon.
Hello, good day, everyone. We are so excited for you to join us tonight for this wonderful tour through the Jurassic Islands.
Yes, and apologies about the time jumping all around. It's just a delay. I mean, all major theme parks had delays. I mean, when they opened up Disney back in the 50s, nothing worked.
Yeah, but haven't waited for Disney when Pirates of the Caribbean broke down. The pirates didn't come down and like, take down all the lights.
Yeah, okay. But, yeah, so I would like to personally thank my co-host here for coming up with the idea for this, which you'd all be surprised that this was her idea, given that I'm probably one of the biggest JP nerds she knows, and that I wasn't the one that proposed this first.
It's, I don't know, it kind of always struck me as like we always kind of have a little theme that we do, like we did last year for two notable franchises. We did one for Planet of the Apes, building up for the New Kingdom line, and we did the Alien one, which of course Jonesy was always going to suggest that
Yeah,
because its own name tag is literally a God-given clue.
yeah. On top of that, yeah, 45th anniversary, and you're saying we're not watching Requiem or Covenant for the 50th, no matter how many darn ways I try to get you to do it.
Well, I was kind of a little bit softer on Covenant, but
Yeah,
I was just
Requiem. You're all like, you'll be like Alan on the plane saying, "Just wake me when it's over."
yeah.
But
So
anyway, we're here for Jurassic Tours. A journey from park to rebirth is the idea for it, and we'll go ahead and let our tour guide tell you about the tour safety of things involved going on. We'll try to be on a guided path, but anything that can happen will, as a famous chaotician will say, because even if things are best laid plans, every now and then the essence of chaos will seep into things and things go awry. And case in point, our start time. But that's chaos.
okay, let's see here. Let me pull out my notes here. Okay. Welcome once again to Jurassic Tours from Park to World. We'll be your tour guides as we adventure into Isla Nublar. Please be advised we will be live at all times. Any and all flows will be recorded and we will not have a second go. It is an active tour zone with living dinosaurs, so please keep all arms and hands inside the tour vehicle at all times. No flash photography. Keep all refreshments in a sealed plastic bag, but on hand so as you do not feel any sense of dehydration. It's going to be a very hot, humid temperature down here. So just waiting to get the all clear here. Are I give it all clear? Welcome to Jurassic Park.
Yes. So, first of all, we're going to go a little differently because if we wanted to say why Jurassic Park is good, this would be a 2 minute stream. Okay, come on. I mean, it is one of the hallmarks of cinema. We'll get to that when we talk about the legacy, but this is like to say groundbreaking is an understatement. You know how Star Wars was such a big deal in the 70s, how it changed how people saw movies? Well, this was the next leap up from that, but I think I'm getting a little ahead of myself there. So, but if you're looking for something more detailed, more in depth, or more thoughtful, there are plenty of other podcasts here. I mean, we're just a bunch of two movie nerds who just love geeking out about this stuff and doing bits and stuff. So if that isn't your cup of tea, well, you'll find better ones. But if you're choosing to stay with our tour, we're really thankful for that. So I have lines. So let's see. In the beginning, when dinosaurs ruled the earth. So as I said, Jurassic Park was a watershed moment because dinosaurs have always been a part of our fictional minds ever since the first bones were dug out of the ground a long time ago by the first paleontologists. The idea that something that existed before that seemed to be of massive scale just kickstarted the imagination, and of course, people wonder what did these things look like, what did they do, what did they eat, all that kind of stuff. And even in cinema, they would translate to putting dinosaurs on the screen to both terrorize and thrill people.
Yes, and so as time would progress, we would have a bit more of information to know understand. I mean, for goodness sakes, back in 1933, King Kong depicted all dinosaurs, even like the our favorite tall necks, as being carnivorous, meat-eating lizards that would just eat anything on sight. I mean,
Yeah.
after all, these are colossal, gigantic beasts that we found dug up underground. Why would we even consider the possibility that they would be fed on a healthy digestion of plants or vegetables?
I mean, there was
But
the
as science progresses, so does the effects. Although sometimes the effects kind of vary depending on what type of movie you're watching. Like for instance, the iconic Lost World. No, not that Lost World. We're not on Sorna yet. But the original Lost World idea, where it was essentially a group of people encountering an island that was uh, well, I'm kind of like paraphrasing a little bit, but it's essentially it has dinosaurs still living on it. But even then, these dinosaurs were kind of very crude. They had a very generous uh, depictions given the bone structures they had at that time, but they were still noteworthy to the point where it's still considered like a old, very old B movie. But then you have the other type of B movies where they just essentially just have a close-up shot of an iguana and say, "Oh, look, there's a dinosaur," and have it photo posed on the background.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'm actually going to pull up an example of this right now as we speak. So this will go over a bit. You'll see our YouTube for just a moment. Wait, that's the right one.
But yeah,
Uh,
other notable ones are like the Land of the Lost, Journey to the Center of the Earth, the Valley of Guanxi, which actually is funny enough, kind of has a little bit of inspiration for a future project we have down the line. But yeah, as you can see on your left here, we have this visual. Yep,
yeah, you can
yeah,
see.
cer- certainly quite a different from how we're going to be seeing our beloved Rexy later. But this
But
is how dinosaurs were portrayed back in the day.
yeah, for the time, stop motion animation was considered like a peak thing. Like we mentioned when we get to, I'm going to take this off the screen right now, but yeah. Oh dang, that's up there like that. I could have done that better. Like I said, that's chaos theory. But okay, so yes, that was the 20s, and every so often, like you said, we got those ones where you either get lizards and iguanas with horns glued on. By the way, very inhumanely, I might add, sent into a pit in front of a glass cage and just wrestle and tear each other apart for the screen to say, "Oh my God, look at that Triceratops fight that iguanodon," and the poor things get horribly damaged. Like I said, so I mean, other times you get like guys in suits where the T Rex's legs are okay, but the arms are so useless and the head so bulbous that he can barely hit his mark. What was that one called? The Lost Dinosaur. There was one that was famous for having a T Rex in a suit that looked very, very unconvincing.
Hmm. We'll have to take your word for that. But funny enough, the last depiction of dinosaurs before Jurassic Park happened was through the Land Before Time, which was actually nicely well done, depicting very graphic dinosaurs fighting each other. But again, that was animation. They had all the freedom to portray these dinosaurs and give you like emotional attachment to them
Okay,
because
so
it's Don Bluth and all that.
so here is the Valley of Guanji, made by famous stop motion animator Ray Harryhausen. And again, this is a hallmark scene right here. As you can see, you got human elements right there, and there is this Styracosaur taking on an or Megalosaur Allosaur right here. That's Guanji, and there's a lot of personality. On top of that, sound is added, but you can really see that it is a leaps and bounds above what was seen in the Lost World. And up until, like you mentioned, Land Before Time, this was considered the pinnacle of dinosaur animation. I mean, you got your Godzillas and your other stuff trying to do stuff with suits and different types of animation, but this had no peer at the time. Like King Kong was considered one of the strong watershed moments, and then Valley of Guanji was the next step. So as you can see right here on the screen, this is getting it's rather impressive. It has a nostalgic quality to it, if you ask me, just seeing dinosaurs rendered in such a way. And you could see that they were different because they were depicted as tail dragging beasts that were super vicious and aggressive. They were always getting into fights. That's why a lot of these things tend to depict them as, lumbering beasts and gladiator death matches, because we find fossils that show evidence of like dinosaurs locked in mortal combat and the like.
But yeah, some would be well remembered and well regarded. Others would be B movie trash. But funny enough, sometimes the B movie can actually be done in the hands of a professional, like say for example our wondrous director Steven Spielberg, who brought about a very convincing 70s blockbuster that would coin the term blockbuster with a little film called Jaws,
Yeah, what's I
which
mean,
funny enough, which funny enough, sharks are depicted as the last living dinosaurs going on to this planet.
yeah. The thing with Jaws is that Spielberg showed how he can be creative on his feet because, as famously documented, they built an elaborate shark, and the dang thing just would not work. And so
Oh boy.
they had to use a lot of like creative point of view shots just to get it, on the thing. But when it actually came to showing the money shots, like you're going to see right here, the most iconic scene from the movie right here, where he's explaining how you got to chum this, and then right there. By the way, that movie will be celebrating its 50th anniversary this
Woo!
this year. So, but yes, Steven thrilled
Yeah,
people.
yeah, 3 cheers for our golden 50 there.
But yes, but
Anyways,
like we said, Steven proved his that was only like his second or third film after a few other small projects where he really started to show his teeth, and that movie scared the bejesus out of people. I'm sure people are going to be like Marty McFly, see the shark and go, still looks fake, but at the time. That was as close as people got to a great white rather than actually going out to the ocean and finding one. So that scared people to even think about what the heck would be in their bathtubs. So he continued to gain a career, taking us to new heights and lows. He would take us to the, mysterious wonders of the close encounters of the third kind by showing what would happen if people find us and would they be friendly or not, making a big worldwide event. He brought it to smaller scales, showing us like what would happen if an alien landed in your backyard, and gave us the lovable ET, the extraterrestrial. He given us thrills and chills, running through ancient ruins of the Amazon and Cairo with Indiana Jones with his buddy George Lucas. And he steadily evolved his career to become the hit filmmaker. That the aforementioned Land Before Time movie was a production of Amblin Entertainment, the studio he founded. So Steven always had his finger in these kind of like vistas and visuals that we all know about now.
it is kind of funny to note that the Land Before Time would. Of course, he would probably push the project for sea dinosaurs, but after he would probably seen the movie go, it's like, man, that was great. What if it was even more real?
Yeah.
And then,
So
of course, it would be fortune and favor him when one day he would have sit down with one of his best friends, Michael Crichton, and ask, "Hey, Mike, what you working on?"
now Michael
Oh,
Crichton.
just
Go on,
yeah.
sorry.
Oh, just a little something called Jurassic Park.
So that got his attention. So Michael Crichton had already established a reputation himself at that point. He had written several novels that have like huge scientific concepts and ideas, but put it in a thriller format that the person reading the pulp novels would be able to get into. From the Andromeda strain about what would happen if a sentient virus came about, to the Terminal Man about what would happen if the guy who doesn't feel no pain suddenly becomes homicidal. He had all sorts of interesting ideas where he would make it feel like, that could make a lot of sense. And yeah, I have a review right here that talks about how he always keeps things frightening, real, and compelling, so it keeps you riveted. So like he always found a way to blend science with his ideas, like what would happen if you found an alien sphere underneath the ocean, and what would that entail, or you know Congo, like you go into a land that was lost, the Great Empire, that suddenly just vanished overnight. Well, what if the inhabitants were taken out by something more animalistic? So he always found a way to make this stuff thing, and you would buy it because of the science. Because it's not like a bunch of techno babble where he's throwing model reflector sorting and all that stuff. He's actually giving you stuff, and you look it up and you go, "Oh shit, that's really a theory and stuff." I mean, nowadays it's common practice for most sci-fi writers to inject a healthy dose of reality so you can buy it. In fact, coincidentally a Jurassic Park influenced book that became a movie itself, but the movie less so was scientifically accurate than the book was Megalodon by Steve Alton, which became known as Meg, the shorthand.
And actually, funny enough, the concept of a dinosaur theme park wouldn't actually. You think Michael Crichton kind of got the idea off it, but no. Actually, funny enough, there was a Judge Dredd storyline in the storyline 2000 AD that introduced the idea of a dinosaur theme park with dinosaurs cloned for DNA called the Cursed Earth.
Yeah. On top of
So
that, the idea of a park going wrong, from something was already something he had touched on with a teleplay based off an idea he had called Westworld, where people would travel to this expansive scientific place that was for entertainment purposes. Like if you wanted to go in the old west and gunsling with a cowboy, you would, because you'd be shooting with this machines made to look like people. So no one's really getting hurt, but you get to live out your fantasy. Let's go in the old west and shoot up an outlaw or this kind of stuff, and you had to be super wealthy to pay for it. And everything was so tightly controlled, so meticulous, and everything like that. That when something started to slip, the whole thing just cascaded apart, and that was in Westworld. So Westworld was kind of like the backdrop for what would become Jurassic Park. About you got these guys who are so proud, so satisfied with the tech, the mastery over the world that they have come to, only for the world to give them a swift kick in the ass and a bite in the face.
exactly, and so the book did get published in 1990, and of course the book would probably be a huge success to the point where, of course, it's it's always Hollywood's interest to always get hungry for anything that gets a lot of bang for your buck. Funny enough, the rights to that, bleh,
So,
there you go, the dangers of a live tour. But anyways, the race to those rights would actually be won in little nanoseconds by the fact that Steven Spielberg literally asked Michael if he could actually do the film rights as he was finishing the book. And of course, Michael said yes.
yeah, so of course, it's kind of unfair that he had a little bit of a foot inside the door already, but there were other big names that were attached to this idea by different studios. Warner Brothers had Joe Dante of Gremlins fame and Howling fame to attached at one point. James Cameron was offered it at one point. Before he was king of the world with Titanic, but still he was considered a surefire talent for like, ooh, this guy could make things going. So there were all sorts of names. Peter Hyams, all sorts of notable directors were given the option for this dinosaur movie, but Steven had enough pull and enough. This is the guy who not only did he make big blockbusters, he produced them as well with his corporate company, the Amblin Entertainment. So, Goonies, all that kind of stuff. It's like, you know, he was a literal giant. Like, if all these guys were like raptors waiting for the opportune time, he was just like a Rex just getting ready to snatch those rights up. And because Universal practically made Steven a household name with Jaws and every other production he's done for them. So Universal saw it in their best interest to say, however it's going to take, however it's going to cost, we're going to make this happen for Steven.
And of course, the rest is history. Well, no, that would be the boring way of doing this tour, is we had to say, well, how the heck are we going to do this? As we already established, making the dinosaurs real on a big screen is kind of a tall order, but not impossible, considering the fact that we've seen the likes of ILM or Lucasfilm produce some really, really great effects, like from the stop motion walkers in Empire Strikes Back, or even the meticulous Rancor in Return of the Jedi. So Steven obviously getting the idea to do step by step motion to animate would actually have been the earliest thing. But there's always that idea of like, well, is there a way that we could make these things be a little bit more lifelike?
All right, so
Obviously, the idea of doing huge lifelike animatronics was possible, except Steven probably had a little bit of a tiffy having flashbacks of dealing with the darn shark.
well,
But luckily,
actually,
yeah,
to correct, as he put it, he wanted to make all the dinosaurs full size, but he said that was his wishful thinking. Like, if he wanted to make an 80-foot tall brachiosaur a real full blown robot, that's gonna be a lot of change, and you got to make sure that thing worked all the time. So you're right. And correction, so I have it right here. 20th Century Fox wanted Joe Dante. Warner Brothers wanted Tim Burton. Imagine Tim Burton making Jurassic Park. And
it could probably be closer to the book.
and
Goodness.
And TriStar wanted Richard Donner, old Dick Donner, the man who made us believe a man could fly. And he made the Goonies, coincidentally. So, but yeah, like I said,
Also, quite notoriously difficult to work with.
you should, yeah. No, Dick Donner was quite. You're probably thinking of actress director. He passed away recently. William. He had some strong things to say about De Niro and Pacino and stuff like that. Anyway, off topic, but yeah, the Steven already had his door in anyway. Like, but basically, but Michael said he was going to sell it to the guy he feels actually had a shot of making this actually happen because I'm sure Tim could have probably done it with his zaniness, but at the same time, if things got in over his head, he probably would have been like what happened to him on Planet of the Apes, when it was just big, all this tech just kind of overwhelmed him. He's like, you can't really put like, well, I bet you somehow you would have found a way to put a black and white striped dinosaur in there.
Probably.
But anyway, Steven already showed the know-how. He already showed it with Jaws, even way back when. He showed it with E.T., Indiana Jones. He always showed he had creative ways. He had a strong creative team. People like Frank Marshall and executive producer Kathleen Kennedy, who always came up with the right way to like fix up things. He had a team he trusted. He worked with people before, and there's people he never worked with before that he could try to get in on this. Like some of the best minds, like you mentioned before, Phil Tippett, who worked with George Lucas. He made the stop motion critters on the chest there, and also is a long history of special effects. He did RoboCop 2 with the and RoboCop 1 with the Ed 209 unit and such. So he is as close to a modern day Ray Harryhausen as you'd get. You probably would not want to be compared to Ray Harryhausen, but that's kind of how I see him, is how he was the next level up. Like if Ray Harryhausen was the master, then he was the learner who ended up becoming the master. So Steven thought, okay, he'll go ahead and handle our live action full size dinos, and for the much more like in your face camera, he went to the guy who brought a alien queen to life for James Cameron with Stan Winston Studios. May he rest in peace.
However, as production is going on, there's a bit of a snag going on. That would be across the street over there with the rise of certain James Cameron working on stuff like Terminator 2 Judgment Day, which brought CGI computer graphics into the fold, and you would probably imagine the eyes that Steven had as he looked at the T-1000 amorphous visage walking through the fire, then seamlessly transition to Robert Pattinson in one take.
Robert
And
Patrick.
yeah, Robert Patrick, sorry. And, imagine Robert Pattinson being a T-1000.
That would work.
Anyways, imagine the absolute like raving, starved look on his face as he saw that one seamless transition and go, "I'm gonna make dinosaurs that way."
So actually, yeah, it was Dennis Muren who worked on the Star Wars film with Phil and everything. He was brought on to be a compositor, but they were also working on T2, and they thought, "Wow, we can do this." And as Steven said, "Okay, that looks cool. You guys made a liquid metal creature." Because he said, I kept bugging him about the pseudopod and the Abyss, and James Cameron's The Abyss, where the water tentacle comes to life. And he kept saying, "But you guys haven't shown me you guys can make an animal." So they told him, "We think we can." And of course, Steven's most famous letters, as he always says, prove it. Go and prove that you can actually make these things in a computer, because that's the idea. Because they thought, okay, the computer would probably make these creatures someday, but not to the extent, because the Terminator scene, the T-1000 was only on screen for a few seconds, and before it turned back into a live action element. And same thing with the pseudopod and the like. And the most he got with a long standing creature made out of CGI effects was the knight from Young Sherlock Holmes that was made out of stained glass. So, but like this is, the idea was what you're going to see right here is the first ever test that made Steven go, well, okay, this might actually be working. Because, like I said, they already had all sorts of planning with Go Motion, with Phil Tippett and the like. But they came up with this proof of concept that started with skeletons running off of the thing, and Steven thought, okay, they move really good, but you're not really showing me a full, harsh in the sunlight dinosaur. And once they saw this, they realized, oh shit, this was it. This was it. See, there it is. very crude by today's standards, but you can see why. There's a real photographic plate there, and you see this lumbering creature look like real. And there it is again. There it is again, right there with the chasing thing. So that's when Steven realized, well, that's it. That's the future right there.
Which then kind of gave a little bit of a snag to the people that were working on it. But of course, it's all about compromise. So, okay, so we'll be able to do this. We'll probably do some shots with this shot. Maybe we'll be able to help. It's funny to point out in the movie. There's this infamous line that Alan Grant gives, like, I feel like I'm out of a job. Like, don't you mean you're extinct?
Now, yeah, because I keep stressing this point every time this quote comes up. Famously, when Phil Tippett saw that, he thought, "I think I just." Because yeah, like Steven told him, you're out of a job, and he's all like, no, I think I'm extinct, and he says, I rubbed it in by actually putting that line in the movie with Alan Grant saying, I think we're out of a job here. Don't you mean extinct? So it's like, but they couldn't let Phil go after all of his work, because they spent weeks because the goal was they had two goals: make these dinosaurs look real, and give them behaviors that feel real. Because you don't want them to be just a bunch of, like we mentioned before, snap tapping monsters that are just in brutal gladiator death fights. You wanted them to feel like this thing is acting like how an animal should act. It gets startled like when it gets aggressive like when, but it also has a sense of beauty and an aura to it. So you had these guys looking at birds and reptiles and elephants just to get idea of muscle tone, to get idea for how they look, what say flocking position look like. They see birds flocking, so they can make the gallimimuses flock. They got they even got like the animal behavior specialist like mindset when they're animating. So when they're animating, they say, okay, so this raptor jumps into frame. He'd be looking around, scoping with his tongue to smell the air, and then he would attack the target he sees. Infamously,
Up, up, stop right there. Yeah, certain paleontologists would probably point out, say, in raptors would not be using their tongues. They're more bird-like. They're not reptiles. It's funny enough considering the fact that one of the preview animatics had raptors kind of given their licking tongues and all of that.
because his idea was
It
that
it
they were mutants, so he thought maybe they'd be a little mutated. But that pissed off the paleontologist, going, "No, they can't do that." It's in this book. I have the Jurassic Park Weekend book, and even Phil Tippett mentioned how he got scolded by Jack Horner for the whole flicking tongue thing because he thought we wanted to make it look a little more active. Let's make it like a snake. Let's give him like this big slipping tongue, and it ticked off because he says, "Listen, if you make something that looks like it could be real, but then you throw in something whimsical, it'll shatter the illusion. Like if you had a T-Rex walk in the frame, but then he started to moonwalk like Michael Jackson or do the smooth criminal tilt. Yeah, it's a realistic T-Rex, but then he's doing stuff that a T-Rex wouldn't do. So that was the idea with the tongue. They said the tongue thing would just throw people off.
Like, now, now, granted, they do kind of slip the tongue in just a little bit, but it's just for a brief moment,
yeah,
messing with the ladle down in the kitchen.
yeah. Here's
But
a
even then, they don't flat out use their tongue. Oh,
yeah here
let's see the visual here.
yeah here's a side by side of the original stop motion animatic they made, which Phil Tippett had animated himself, and they follow it pretty close because they made storyboards because Steven storyboarded everything, and they wanted to go ahead and see. There's the flicking tongue. You can see it right on the top frame, right there. And I still think it looks, interesting, but you can see why they'd be concerned with like, hey, you kind of threw off the realism by having these guys walk in and they start doing this little. But you see how they move kind of bird-like, because that was the idea to make them feel like, hey, look, they're real. All right,
But
but yeah,
of course, like again, they did have that little throwaway idea, like, well, they're mutations, but some of the audiences would probably be thrown off by that. But it would probably be an idea explored in later movies. But this is the first movie we're trying to do here. We're trying to break out of the norms of old dinosaur archaic cinema. We're trying to go away from where brachiosauruses are snarling beasts that would just attack a freaking lion that just walked by or something silly like that. What they want to try to do is they want to try to make these dinosaurs really grab your attention. Like, these are supposed to be dinosaurs that are brought back and are being plucked down into a living, breathing, uh, biopreserve, that's the cover story, anyways, theme park and have actual paleontologists appear before them and be absolutely stunned that they're seeing the real thing before them. And
So,
so it was quite an arduous task, but they managed to pull it off. And of course, we would have this movie, and we would be having this tour right before you now.
so another thing to mention too is the fact that has to do with the realism effect and all that stuff. The fact where this all started from, you wonder how is this possible? They say because it was when he was coming to the idea with Jurassic Park, Michael Crichton threw on how are they going to bring him back. Well, cloning was a big deal because we had cloned that sheep way back in the '80s, and he figured, well, they can't get. There was that story where they found preserved amber with a type of beetle bee that like sucked blood from like the from the Cenozoic era, I believe, a little after the dinosaurs. But still, they thought, well, he told his guys, what if these guys got a mosquito and took the DNA out of it? Even he thought they're gonna tell him, no, that's stupid. But they said, oh, no, it's a possibility, and I made him say, oh, that could probably be our end. So that was the whole thing. Kickstarted the whole make it real. That was the imperative. Make it real and don't make it like super fantasy. And there is fantastical elements, but it's grounded in a way where you can buy that if somebody had the means and the capital and the testicular fortitude to try to make something like this happen, that it possibly could. But the question is, sometimes we get so preoccupied with whether or not we could, we don't stop to think if we should.
Quick little brief uh, dip into the comments. Drunken Grandmaster has a funny story that 10 years ago at a state park with their bro, tall skinny guy with a pure white suit, straw fedora, and white goatee walked by. Before they could stop themselves, look, John Hammond.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of gentlemen who have a strong resemblance to John Hammond, and sometimes when they wear the all suit, it just doesn't help. Like, but you don't want to like. My dad knows I like the movie, so he'll tell me and say, "Look, welcome to Jurassic Park." I'm like, but anyway, carry on. So we have our itinerary here. We saw the players and how it started. If you want a more in-depth, detailed version of the trials and tribulation to make this happen, we highly recommend looking online for the special features of Jurassic Park, including the making of Jurassic Park, which was made in the mid '90s. And they're hosted by the late great James Earl Jones. Like I asked her, I made her watch just about every special feature so we get an idea of the ins and outs of this movie. And I own right in front of me. You can't see it on the camera, but there's this book that has about 150 pages plus storyboards of Jurassic information.
Wow, that's a. I saw you flip those pages. That's quite a lot of illustrations I could see,
Oh
even
yes,
from here.
I'll show it for the camera. Like that's my most. I'm sure you've probably heard how this is my most favorite image of all time with the T Rex. And if you guys know it, it's the one where the Tyrannosaurus has the tire shred in its mouth and it's roaring with its eyes closed as it triumphed over its fallen adversary. But yes, a lot of these pictures are nostalgic for me because a lot of these showed up in a lot of storybooks and magazines at the time. So yeah, finding this for $1 at a yard sale was such a godsend. I knew that best $1 I ever spent.
I definitely take your word for it, because by the time Jurassic Park came out, I was just basically just a little infant. So
Oh,
I wouldn't have been able to be in the middle of that zeitgeist anyways.
anyway,
But it's still nice to know that nostalgia. And speaking of nostalgia, we could definitely give a brief synopsis to the story of why this thing is such a classic. So basically, we have this theme park that is Jurassic Park being run by John Hammond. Of course, they have been able to set this up for years in secret. Unfortunately, there is a bit of a snafu moving a certain predator into their cages to the point where it got to the higher ups that John was working with, and so they need to be able to get the snafu wrapped up, or else all their hard work is gonna get shelved. Oh, geez, it sounds like David Zaslav to me. Anyways, so they decide that the lawyer suggests that they need to get actual paleontologists to sign off on this and say, okay, look, this is all good. That was just a little bit of a scruffy. We're literally in the middle of the park and everything's been hunky dory. So they get the chaotician mathematician Dr. Ian Malcolm, and John definitely suggests getting Dr. Ellie Sadler and the great Dr. Alan Grant.
Hmm.
And Grant and Sadler are a little bit even in a tight position, given that their funding could be reaching at their end when they're adding technology, which is funny. We're going through a bit of a technological bubble going right now. We're all probably feeling a little bit like Alan Grant is. We're seeing all these AIs
Hey, yeah, I hate
pop up.
Yeah, as he says his first line, I hate computers, and Ellie tells him the feeling's mutual.
But to their surprise, they are actually met with John, and he says, like, I'll give you a huge boost to your grant that I've graciously given you, as long as you give the okay to my park. And so they agree. They go off to the park, and they really don't know what they're expecting. John's being a little bit vague about it, but then the moment drops, the big moment for all the audiences as they get to see the Brachiosaur.
Yes, so
As if it's right there in person, alive, and obviously ending with John Hammond greeting them to with the iconic line of "Welcome to Jurassic Park."
of course, they're brought to this park where they're overwhelmed by the sheer majesty of it, but then they start getting to the ethical questions about it. We'll get to it later when we break down probably one of my favorite scenes, but the idea is that you're they're the POV for us. You're just like them. When Dr. Sattler and Dr. Grant are making the odd faces of like, what are we looking at? That's the audience. So once the we actually see it, you kind of get swept up with them. Where you're just and plus John Williams' music just makes that scene work. Like I mean, even as a kid, when I had no idea what computer graphics were, just seeing one of those was just incredible. In fact, like I said, it's going to be popping up on the screen just to show it. It all helps that Stephen cast such great actors. We'll be going into detail in a bit with like to give us like these like you buy that they're being like, what the heck am I seeing? So like for example, you're gonna see right here when he turns her face towards the. It is such a great like. Some would probably say in any other movie that would be overacting, but the fact that they look like they're like, what are we looking at? And then here it is, honest to goodness, just walking in front of them. That is a magical movie moment up there. It's as magical as, well, it's not really magical like, in a magical way, but it's as iconic as Indy getting ready to switch to sand for the idol. It's as iconic as the first time the Falcon ever shot into hyperspace. It's as iconic as the time John Hurt stuck his face into the. Okay, I'm getting a little more personal with that one, but you know what I'm trying to say. That when he says it's a dinosaur, that's what the audience is thinking too. So,
A drunken grandmaster said, "My grandfather grew up old school. Creature features was 47, older brother was 5, dad was 23. Every reaction imaginable was in my house when it came out. Reunited it over and over again." And my brother said the first time he saw it in the theater, he was rooted to the spot. Second theater bowing, uh, second theater viewing, he hid in his seat the whole time.
it's funny. Me being the Jurassic fan that I am, you might laugh that one of the littlest guys in this movie, made me terrified. But now it's one of my favorite creatures ever, to the point where I kind of have an alternate persona that's resembled off of one. But anyway, the point is, yeah, you bought it. Like they said, they had to make sure people bought it because you can see pictures of, oh, that's a good T Rex model. You can see pictures of, oh, that trike looks real. But when you see it in the picture in the movie, like moving in motion with the actors just reacting with the music and the sounds all carried together, it, for lack of a better word, it's magic. It's just magic.
It is, and especially with the 4K upscale that I saw, it was still pretty impressive that they were able to pull this off in '93. Because you thought the old school dinosaur effects in Hollywood was something. Early '90s CGI was something else.
It's
Like,
still
okay, sure, oh sure, you might have had your T2s in this movie, but then you'd also have your Spawns and your Mortal Kombat Annihilations and oh boy.
I know Godzilla
Uh,
98's
uh,
babies.
yeah, it's funny. '98 is a little bit split for me. It's like it got big, big Papa Godzilla, pretty banging. The babies, get that off the screen for me, please.
Yes. So, anyway, to make the long story short, they are looking at this thinking, "Wow, amazing!" But then they start talking about what are you doing to make this
Well, wait a
happen?
minute. What? Yeah, yeah. It's kind of funny. They're amazed at first, and then their minds start clicking. Like, you're gonna make a theme park out of this with live people with different reactions to wild animals who have never been on this earth for dozens of years. And you think it's not gonna work out?
Yeah, and of course, thanks to a combination of nature and internal saboteur, things do go to pot. And that's when the terror begins. As the sequels say, ooh, ah, that's how it always starts. But then later there's running and screaming. And we get a lot of that in the second half of the movie because it goes from, oh my god, dinosaurs, it's amazing. You start being in awe that you forget it's a horror movie. That when all the bad stuff starts happening, you're kind of like whiplashed by that. Not in a way that it would like, like derail everything, but you're still going like, oh. And then like the younger inclined kids would be like, it's like on a roller coaster ride. You're being scared when you see the big, giant Tyrannosaurus, drop a goat's leg on a car and look right at you. Like if he's not looking at the prey on the in the Explorer, it's like she's looking at you directly, and that's the kind of feeling some of us would get watching that. But it gets you excited the same way that giant shark popping out of the water in Jaws did for audiences almost 2 decades prior. You got this going on with Jurassic Park. So now it becomes a frantic race of survival to like get the systems back and running, call for help, and get off the island before they get chewed by something else. So that's the gist of the story. And you find out that all this control, all this safeguards and precautions, all this we've mastered our environment, we've mastered nature, was all for nothing because, as Ian Malcolm says, life,
Capitalism got greedy.
yeah, life cannot be contained. Life breaks free. Life crosses the barriers, boundaries to territories dangerously, very painlessly, maybe even dangerously. But there it is. So that's the lesson: is don't mess with Mother Nature. And man was not meant to meddle, that whole deal. But it's done in a fun package. It doesn't feel like it stops and looks at the camera and says, "You see, this is what happens with unchecked capitalism," and blah, 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 blah. Like it doesn't do that. It makes it entertaining. But when you're someone like us who we love to peel the onion off of these movies, like layers, all that stuff, we start seeing things that make sense. In fact, it's much more explicit in the book because Ian, well, under delusions of morphine after being injured by a T-Rex, goes into all these big soapbox rants that are talking about deep time theory and all this stuff. So, but it's funny because when the book was conceived, it was conceived as an adventure of a paleontologist and two kids on a place full of this park of dinosaurs, plus with a few dangers here and there. And they told him that your last books were a little violent, so go ahead and stick some more violence in there. And the book is a much different beast than the final movie we got.
Yeah, to the point where some people to this day will demand wanting to see a true to form, word for word book adaptation of Jurassic Park. Granted, it's a little bit difficult considering the fact that the first movie was so beloved to the point where in 2018 it is literally registered into the Library of Congress for being culturally significant.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna do that, you're gonna be having a little bit of a tussle here. Maybe
So
it's a Netflix exclusive, but even then, you're gonna be matching that against the classic.
anyway, to sum up the whole story in 4 letters, 4 words, life finds a way, and that's what it does in this. So let's go ahead and meet the players in our intrepid play, the poor people that have been put onto this little situation. We'll start off with the man who dreamt up this whole idea, Richard Attenborough as John Hammond. Now we mentioned the book already, but Hammond in the book is a little bit of a conniving bastard where he puts on the grandfatherly facade for the front facing public, but internally he's thinking about all the money he's going to make, all the pains in his asses that he has to deal with squabbling employees and taking care of lawyers and legal crap. So he is a much more vicious, cutthroat guy, but he has that outward era persona of like welcome and all that kind of thing. So having Richard Attenborough play that character drastically changed how he was going to be in the movie. Although one of the guys in consideration for him at the time was Sean Connery, which I think he probably could have pulled off decently the vicious version of him. Although if you want to be, I don't know if he was old enough at the time, but if you try to do one modern one today, I would put Werner Herzog as Hammond. I know he was
Ooh,
the buyer in Mandalorian, but just imagine him say, I'm thinking about his chickens. They amaze me with the stupidity within their eyes. A very stupid creature. But then that would change Hammond from Scottish to whatever the hell Werner is, with all due respect to Mr. Herzog. But point is, Richard Attenborough did kind of change the course of how that character would become, and he's much more authentic, more godfatherly, more you kind of want to be him. And you hear his motives. He's got the showman side where he's like, good day, the most elaborate theme park in the entirety of the planet. But you also have like, you could tell he does have a little bit of an edge to him because there's a scene where he's squabbling with Dennis Nedry over payment disputes, and he says a line, not cold and ruthlessly, but you can feel that the hammer drop on that one. He says, "I don't blame people for their mistakes, but I do ask that they pay for them." So, and you see hints of that the book version of Hammond when like, look, he almost throws a downright temper tantrum when he's told that they got to cancel the park right there because of storm weather, and he has the iconic "damn," which the way Attenborough delivers is just no one else can do it quite like him. And the funny thing is, he's also a director himself. So whenever Steven has to give directions, he kind of knows instinctively, okay, this is what he wants me to do. So it kind of helps that he was a director. In fact, he kind of joked after he saw Jurassic Park, the dailies for it, and he said that working on it, he said that that's Steven. He's a real menace. All of us directors now actually have to lift our socks up now, saying that because he did the whole thing 12 days ahead of schedule, kept it under budget, and got every shot he needed. So that made every director say, "Oh," not laughing, saying, "Now you're gonna make us work hard to even keep up with you."
As a little side note, in behind the scenes, while they were shooting Jurassic Park, there was a actual storm that blew by to the point where everyone kind of had to get huddled up into the hotels, and uh, memorably, Richard Attenborough was the one that was keeping everyone's spirits up during all this, because of course it's like, oh, we're like being stranded during all the storm, we're getting a little bit flooded, the power's gonna go out, but Richard's uh, optimistic attitude kind of kept everyone's spirits up that they were going to be able to pull this movie off.
On top of it, he fell
And
asleep
afterwards,
during the storm. He fell asleep during the
oh,
hurricane. Yeah, he fell asleep during the hurricane, and they asked him, "How could you fall asleep during any of that?" "My boy, I survived the blitz," as he said.
oh my god! But yeah, his uplifting spirit still helped everyone to get through that.
In a
And hey, most iconic movies have to have their hard times. Uh, ask George Lucas how his visits to Tunisia are.
But like Jurassic Park, they have a seasoned veteran who's able to keep everybody going through the process. In Star Wars case, it was Sir Alec Guinness. In this case, it was Sir Richard Attenborough. So he was able to keep everything moving along. So, but I think the scene that truly speaks to him. Again, as a kid, you're thinking, when are we going to get back to the dinosaurs? But now, as an adult, you're almost downright put to tears when he's explaining why he did all this in the first place to begin with, where he describes how he made a flea circus a long time ago when he came from Scotland, and how he says, "I wanted to create something that wasn't an illusion. I wanted to make something real." And he also has, this is the most bookish Hammond he is, when they mention how you got to feel this. He says, "We can make it perfect next time." He's all, "Creation is an act of sheer will." He's saying how he wants to make it perfect and flawless. And Ellie has to snap him back to reality, telling him that, yeah, you never had control. You thought you were able to do this stuff. Because Ian warns him earlier by saying how the dangerous with the technology you have is you didn't take any discipline to attain it. You read what others had done and you took the next step. So you don't take any responsibility for it because you didn't learn knowledge for yourself. So Hammond is just so, wow, look what we did. Look what we did. We were able to bring something no one's ever seen before. So there's a little bit of arrogance in there, a little bit of hubris, but not in a way that turns you off. He's not like some macro billionaire that's like starting up tech firms saying, "Look what I can do with my games and stuff like that," and then get into the White House and get kicked out later when everyone's thinking the guy's a Rito. Rhymes with husk.
Huh? What are we talking about? I don't know. To actually his defense for John Hammond, the park was actually going to be working out pretty well, even with the storm. It's just greedy people got to be greedy. And of course, they would be sabotaging things that were put into place. But again, they should also have security protocols in beforehand if something were to happen. So I don't know. The blame game kind of blurs at that point.
Because
But
the irony
anyway,
is, there's one line Hammond keeps saying every time he talks about how proud he is. Oh, I spared no expense. But apparently he cheaped out on the one guy who was keeping things running, so he probably spared an expense where he probably shouldn't have.
Well, I still think that Nedry kind of put himself in a hole. He probably had a gambling addiction. I mean, goodness sakes, he's not even keeping like his own circle cleaned up in place.
Well,
Like,
they did
and,
mention that
and you
Nedry went to college in Cambridge, and Cambridge isn't cheap. Because he says, call Nedry's people at Cambridge. so,
so I know we were supposed to be talking about a different character, but I guess we could like bring up Nedry
no,
since we kind of
we'll go into him, but we'll follow the itinerary. Funny thing is, Hammond is so sure of his control department. There's another it's a fatherly arrogance, but it's still arrogant nonetheless. Where we see a raptor hatching, and he's talking about how he's been present for the birth of every creature on this island. To say how it gets them to trust me. Like if him being there for the birth wouldn't prevent them from trying to take a snap at him. I think the later movies would probably point to that merit to that, but that's a little bit of like, look at how I've conquered nature, look at how I have dominion even over these things I have made, that they see me as father, as God, that they wouldn't dare lift a claw against me. He never goes to that length of lunacy and madness, but uh, a less stable mind probably would have fallen to that if they were having the same power John Hammond did. So that's another thing. Like the best scene is again is the scene where he's describing his why he did what he did, and Ellie stepping up back to reality. So yeah, but anyway, because he's so sure of these things, he ignores the advice constantly of his park game warden, Robert Muldoon, played by the late Bob Peck. And because here's a way to describe it. He calls him a bit of an alarmist. Like he thinks in his mind he thinks Muldoon worries too much. But when the park falls apart, you see that Muldoon had a point.
and to so I it's funny 'cause I always kind of saw Muldoon as a little bit of an asshole, like when I was a kid watching this movie growing up. But nowadays I can see like, okay, at least he had some priorities to keep safety in check. He was the chief of security. His job was to keep the safety of the humans ahead of the animals.
Well,
That's an entirely different job of his. He has to make sure that these animals do not harm anyone, which of course he feel a little bit of a grudge when one of his hands gets snatched up by the big one.
yeah. See what because what happens is that yeah, he's always on full alert. When he's the first human we see in this movie. Well, not counting the extra workers. By the way, side note, when that scene happens with the Raptors starting, I always laugh at I think it's Luis Guzman, a background character actor who appears in a lot of stuff, being one of the park guys who's like chewing gum while he's waiting for the Raptor. He's like, "All right, let's do this." He just see him like because everyone has like, "Oh shit, here it comes." They're just waiting for anything to happen. But you see him, he's just chewing his gum. Like you can argue he's chewing the scenery, but because he just draws attention. Like every time I watch this movie, I get a chuckle every time I see the guy. You know the guy I'm talking about, right? right when the,
Yeah, exactly.
so the idea is that he's the first guy we see where he's got a full blown rifle and everything, but he still honors the wishes of his boss by saying, "I want tasers on full charge." He didn't get to live ammunition. That when his handlers get taken in by the raptor, he has the famous line where it's lost. She's already taken. He's all shoot, ha!
And so when the park actually does fall to pieces, he's like gung ho to get out in the field and get like everyone to safety, like both the doctor still out, Grant and Malcolm, as well as the lawyer, which that doesn't pan out well, and also the grandkids to John Hammond, which that would probably be top priority because you think the handlers getting eaten by dinosaurs would be bad. Imagine if the higher ups heard, "Oh yeah, our CEO John Hammond's grandkids got eaten by our assets." So
Oops.
yeah, we're gonna be bankrupt.
Yeah, so yeah, because you gotta love how there's always tension. Like one part that always sticks out is while we're having background antics with Nedry and Hammond, he even tells them all, "Hey, shut up." He's all looking nervous. He's all saying they're pushing Tyrannosaur paddock. Him thinking like Rexy's never had an audience before. In fact, in the novel, Muldoon is the reason they called the T-Rex Rex. He's all, well, it looks like Rex. He just fed. He'll say that. So yeah, Muldoon to thank for that fan name getting thrown around. But again, book Muldoon. In fact, what's funny is some of the characters I get mentioned in the book are totally different than their movie counterparts. For example, Gennaro is not the cowardly lawyer who's like thinking about the publicity of the park. He actually is a bit of a badass. He actually gets to help rocket launcher a T-Rex with Muldoon.
Huh.
And
I don't know if I'm disappointed or relieved to not see that in this movie.
no, don't worry, it's a trank dart, but it's a trank that requires a rocket launcher to fire at a T-Rex chasing after them. I bet you're thinking, one of these days, you really do got to sit down and take a look at this book. uh,
Uh, yeah, it's just maybe I'll probably get one of the nice Barnes and Nobles covers
they got,
that they
they
put out.
got, I think they got one that's a combo of both the Lost World and Jurassic Park books in one big book, so that's probably be up your alley and save shelf space. Plus, if you thought we'll get to this when we talk about that. But if you thought the Jurassic Park book was a different beast than its book counterpart, then oh boy, this is on a whole other island, man, a whole other continent in terms of whoa, that is not even remotely close to what is this. But anyway, getting sidetracked. But
Oh
more,
yeah, especially with the third act.
oh
But we'll get
god,
to that when we get to Sorna.
yeah, but
But we are still on Isla Nublar,
Muldoon.
and I with Muldoon.
What's funny is how
And,
Hammond describes him as a guy who knows more about raptors than anybody. Yeah, he walks right into a blunder where you're going, that sounds like a rookie mistake. Because to set up how well Alan knows raptors, he describes how an attack pattern happens from the side while you're looking at one from the front. And Muldoon is too busy trying to shoot down one from the front. He probably still has a bit of an Ahabness for the other raptors that killed his people in the past, because he always kept like his first line to the group is saying the raptors should all be destroyed. And he keeps talking about how these guys they try to keep attacking fences systematically. He says that there's a big one that's smart and looks right at you, that she's figuring you out. So this is a guy that he's not quite like Quint, I might say, but you could argue he's along the same lines of like someone who can be driven by madness by how dangerous these creatures are to the point where he doesn't mind his own safety at times.
yeah, it is kind of glaring that he says he's an expert on raptors, but then he kind of I forgot that one thing that raptors like to do. But then, given the fact that they just kind of just threw these in like a windowless cage, not being able to study them well, because we also have like all these uh, palm frills that are kind of covering things. He wasn't able to have a good vantage point. A mistake a certain character in a future movie would rectify in spades,
Oh
and
yes.
very well, might I add.
So, but yeah, like I said, he is a memorable character. However, is he the best hunter character in the series? We'll save that for the next time. But anyway, going on to the next staff member, we do got our computer expert here, Mr. Ray Arnold, or John Arnold, depending on the novels you look at. But point is, played by a certain actor,
Samuel Mother L. fucking Jackson.
and this was before he got big, because he was already on the rise, because he did appearances in like Coming to America and stuff. This is like pre Pulp Fiction. After Pulp Fiction, he pretty much exploded to like a big movie star. But you know, it's funny. He still gets to say iconic lines. One of the most iconic that people constantly quote every time is "Hold on to your butts." But Ray says as he starts the tour. So his idea is that he's the guy constantly reminding John of all the problems they're having, because he says we have all the major problems of a theme park and a major zoo, and because he is always telling people about how like those cars shouldn't be working like that. These things he's like just you can tell that he probably smokes several packs a day because he's trying to stay sane about how much they're trying to run a park with less than three people that requires all these supercomputers and stuff. Again, he too also has a little bit of hubris, thinking, okay, I can go ahead and get this park back up and running after the later character Nedry's issues cause problems and they can't fix it on their own. He figures, well, we got to start things all over. He also explains to Muldoon, going back to Muldoon, how Muldoon was quick to put forth the lysine contingency, which is an idea that they would deprive the animals of the enzyme they need to survive and die, and Hammond would not have any of that. So Ray is kind of like also you could argue he's kind of also on Muldoon's side of like we got all these problems we gotta like control this and that, and it's a bit part. He's in it for a handful of scenes, but Samuel Jackson does have some memorable moments. One of the most memorable being, of course, Nedry's little hacker prank that happens to him because there's a part
Please! God damn it! Hate this sack of crap!
where he tries to like uh, break into the system that he did, and he keeps getting all these denied until he gets this Nedry with Elvis tracksuit telling him you didn't say the magic word, and he's just so frustrated. He also comments on his workstation being a complete mess. Where you're going like, yeah, I don't blame Mr. Arnold for thinking that. So Arnold does try to go off on his own to save it, and unfortunately, due to scheduling, even though they got ahead of 12 days ahead of schedule, due to the hurricane damage and having to move production, they never got around to filming his final moments where he would be stalked by a raptor in the shed. They had all this stuff planned for it, everything like that. He was getting ready to say, "Oh, I can't wait to shoot my scene where I die." Well, that scene is described in detail in the novel, where how he's almost at the point, but you can hear clicking and clacking, and he's like, eventually he gets hit by something heavy and hard, like pushing him against the ground, and he feels sharpness. It's like really well described. But
But, well, it's it's Spielberg, so he's usually knows how to handle like, well, it's once again the case of like the shark isn't working, so I'll just have to do what I can do with this.
so we just get an arm, like he said, throw me a bone
It's
here.
it's an effective scare though. It's like, oh, good, Ellie is safe. Is, oh no, she's not safe. She's not safe. She's not safe.
So other member of the staff that's running this whole thing is Dennis Nedry, played by Wayne Knight of so much
No
fame.
man.
Yeah, he was best known for being Newman in Seinfeld right after this. But for my book, he was always in my mind, pardon the phrasing, if as insensitive as it may sound, hey, look, it's the fat guy from Jurassic Park. That was like my common refrain anytime I'm channel surfing and he pops up in a movie like Basic Instinct or something. I'd be, hey, look, it's the fat guy from Jurassic Park. Thankfully, he has lost a lot of weight since then. He decided to turn his life around, and well, yeah, he's still recognizable, but he's not as. If you look at him in this movie, the guy's huge. He's like maybe 200 pounds away from being on my 600-pound life, but the way he looked on that one, like his,
Oh, that's good to hear about him.
he actually, you might have seen him recently without realizing it. He is in that Five Nights at Freddy's 2 teaser trailer. When you saw that one guy that's like the camera's kind of zolling into him before he gets like yanked into the into the window, that was Wayne Knight.
Huh. Well, it's been a while since I've seen that teaser trailer, so I'll have to give it a look once we're completed with the tour tonight.
But yes,
But
yes. So he plays.
so Dennis Nedry is the really frumpy, ex- really really annoyed computer hacker who's like fed up with him and like being stingy with his funds. Well, given the fact that, in my opinion, he probably did kind of expunge those funds and kept asking for more raise, even
Cause,
though like he's got another expert on hand beside him, Mr. Arnold, not doing all that.
Because he's saying this. He said, "As you run the staff a minimal staff with for 3 days, he said, is that automation easy or cheap? Do you know anyone else who could debug 300 lines of code and do all those phones for what I bid for this job?" Because he says that he was probably offered a decent amount, but he was getting screwed on it.
He probably also saw like the rackets of money that was going to come if this park actually did succeed, and so probably ahead of time he probably was like, okay, I want even more for this if you want this thing to run. And of course, probably Hammer's like, "At- we haven't even opened the park yet. You're asking for more?
But yes, this for a guy who spared no expense, he chose to spare it in the wrong place. And Nedry, disgruntled, he gets an offer from the will later become known as Biosyn. Again, a company from the. I keep pulling the sucker out. A company from the book that is run by ruthless CEO Lewis Dotson. I know,
Who?
Dotson. We got Dotson here. Nobody cares. So okay, now we. I love to say movies age well, and there's no problematic people involved. But this is the one guy. Thankfully, he's such a bit part. He's not, doesn't taint the legacy. But this guy did get in trouble for real life stuff that involved stuff that you probably shouldn't get involved with. That rhymes with, you know, that rhymes with finer. Yes, but yeah, bad guy in real life, I guess. But point is though, Dodson offers him like the first scene we meet Nedry is he's like stuffing his face at a Mexican restaurant while Dodson comes in with a sack of money, basically telling him his half of the project going to get 1 million more for each specimen he give me, and there's like 12 or more specimens, so he's looking to be really really rich from this venture. So to do corporate espionage, because in the book Dodson goes through so much, people get killed on his command trying to get to the bottom of what is Engine doing. So Dodson is a bad mofo in the book. If there's any equivalent to him, kind of Albert Wesker without the superpowers.
Goodness. But
And
yeah, he offers to Nedry a iconic uh spray of shaving cream, which
Barbasol.
should be uh, yeah, Barbasol shaving cream. Which, funny enough, when Dominion was going around, they were doing this marketing where they would have really cruddy looking Barbasol cans, as if they were like unearthed from later in the movie when it gets buried under a sludge of mud, and through expanded lore means would be found and recovered for Biosyn to use for later. But that's running out of time. Anyways, the specimens Nedry would get would be placed inside the can, and would probably be a huge competition thing. Imagine if Willy Wonka's everlasting gobstopper did actually get out of the factory.
Oh my God, you're right. This is the whole Slugworth offer to Charlie. Fuck, I just saw that just now. But point is, he says you're going to catch up on 18 years of research. He said, because the idea is that yeah, he was going to get all this money, so that's why he did it. And you see him throughout the whole time while the tour's going on, doing this backdoor plotting, looking at the security gates, taking everything out. But the thing is, Nedry kind of probably overestimated the security himself because he didn't just knock it out to his 20-minute window. He pretty much kiboshed it with the meteorite of code. So again, another example of man's hubris getting the better of it. He thought he knew better that I'm going to be able to do the perfect crime. I'm going to be able to go in, go out, get on the boat, and I'll be out of the way before they figure out what's what. And nature had another idea for him. The whole storm could argue because it really did mess up his plan because he can't even drive with his glasses during the mist. And on top of that, a lot of the boat almost has to leave early because of the storm. So point is, he had this whole plan set up. He was going to do it perfectly, and walk away with the perfect crime. Also stick it to John Hammond. So, and Wayne Knight plays him with such humor in a way that you're like, you can't really hate the guy. I mean, you can hate the guy, but you love to hate him in a way like, oh, this guy. I hope you get yours in a fun way, rather than him being so infuriatingly like, oh, I hope you want to wring the guy's neck. This guy just you hope to see him get his in a fun way, and the scene is
to, to
memorable.
the to the point where his slip and fall in the rain is literally met with the cartoon sound
A
effect.
banana peel sound, yeah. So, but point is, Wade Knight does a good job at playing him as desperate, but also kind of mischievous, playfulness and mischievous. You get that with the and I mean, had you see a lot of guys at conventions with the yellow rain slick and the misty glasses playing Dennis. Like even Angry Video Game Nerds, when he did Media Blasters guys, one of them was dressed up as Dennis Nedry for the Trespasser episode, and he actually pulled a pretty convincing cosplay, if you asked me. When Nedry's
Yeah,
mace, if you remember, he's apparently one of
the
the
most powerful thing in the entire island. And of course, Netri forgot to have it along with him as he was driving out to escape from the island.
yeah. So that's the closest thing you can call a villain in this movie. Because the funny thing about this movie is there is no villain. It's all about survival. I think you could argue that.
Well, there is technically the Raptor group, but we'll get to them when we get to them. But we still have quite a menagerie of cast. So we could also bring up Dr. Henry Wu. He's very small bit, but he's
Edie
going to have
Wong.
a larger role way later in the franchise.
Now, what's amazing about Doctor Wu is in the book. Why did I bring this
No,
out?
wait. No, this is what we're here for the tour for. Bring up your book.
Yeah. So where he does have a long argument with John Hammond about how none of this would be possible without me, and you're shutting me out basically. Because Wu would be saying, you know, you gotta do this to help encourage growth. You gotta do this to make sure they're more accurate. And Hammond's all like, "Bah, I don't have time for this," basically. So Wu is always butting heads with Hammond because he wants to do it for the science. He's really in it, but also because, and Hammond's all, "Don't forget who made this all possible for you. You only have this lab because of me and my money, basically." So Wu is a bit of a sympathetic, but also he's arrogant. Like Jurassic Park only exists because of me, and the later sequels thankfully capitalize on that. Wu is a little more subdued in this one, but you still get a hint of that, you know, arrogance where he mentions how nonchalantly how they were able to modify the genders of the dinosaurs in vitro and say how we have them perfectly controlled. We're not be able. There's no unauthorized breeding because they're all female. We make them female. We simply deny them that. He's saying we denied him that, like he says, "Oh, I just took my car for a car wash," and again, dangerously arrogant to have a guy so sure of his science that he's saying like, uh, think about it, this is a living thing, but he's saying, "Oh, we simply denied them the fact." If these poor dinosaurs had gender dysphoria, he'd probably be like, "Oh no, we just denied them that."
Thank you for that. Anyways,
That wasn't meant to
uh,
be anything. I'm just saying how it's a small
no,
part,
no, it's fine.
but in the scene, like he says, when you see him, you see it. They're like, well, this is a guy who thinks pretty highly of the work he's doing. Because on one hand, he sees he's friendly because he's like, oh, look at this thing's hatching. He's all like, oh, he's helping coax a raptor, and he's talking about how, oh yeah, we just do this to them. Like, again, these aren't living. That's why Ian's all like, oh, geez, the lack of humility before nature staggers me. So he's the one that tells Doctor Wu that life cannot be contained. And even Wu's all like thinking like, oh, what's this guy saying? Are you trying to say all females will be able to breed? And the iconic line of, no, I'm simply saying life finds a way. So, okay.
No, Doctor Wu. Ian Malcolm was literally telling you that some of your dinosaurs could actually decide. You know what? That that Dilophosaurus across this fence. I think she's giving me fucking eyes.
Oh, Delilah. So, other characters we have going on, we have Donald Gennaro, the lawyer that represents Hammond's investors, played by Martin Farrow, and he's actually a combination of two characters from the book. There's the Gennaro name, and he's like he's taking this whole safety inspection super seriously, but you also have publicist and scheming, you know, the kind of like the guy that's making sure the press is good for everything, Ed Regis, a guy who's a bit of he doesn't know nothing about the dinosaurs, and he's like thinking, oh, well, we're just gonna make a boatload of money off of this. So getting him mixed in with the lawyer, you get this guy where on one hand he's being like, you know, we're gonna shut this place down because you know we have a huge lawsuit from guys getting eaten left and right, and you guys are telling me Hammond's not even here to see me. So he comes out with the daggers, getting ready to say, "Oh, we're gonna stick you, John. If your inspection and these experts you brought in don't work for us, you know, I'm gonna shut you down." But once he sees the first dinosaur, he's not just seeing the wonder and awe of, "Oh, these things are back." He's seeing dollar signs.
He's literally seeing the dollar signs as high as the Brachiosaurus is reaching up to that tree.
And the scene that gives it away is the scene when they're describing the animals and everything like that, about all the stuff they made, you know, biotech and attractions and that stuff. And he says we can charge 2,000 a day, 3,000 a day, and the people will pay it. Sounds like a Nintendo exec, but he is. Point is though, he does say that you know he starts going gaga over the like everyone else. This thing is powerful. This is amazing. Look what we've made. Look what we've done. And he kind of just gets swept up in it all thing. And of course, it becomes very real for him once they go to the T Rex paddock, and the minute he sees that thing's actually alive, he first thing he does is cut tail and run instead of listening to the experts. On top of that,
And of course, he pretty much just gets gobbled up at the spot.
in the most memorable scene ever.
Well, if I'll say one thing, at the very least he was on a toilet because he was probably shitting bricks as he was being stared down by Rexy.
But yes, but he is like I said, so he does. He's pretty funny, and again that table scene. where he's describing his true motives. And the funny part is when all the scientists meant to support Hammond are saying, "Hey, listen, you're playing with fire here." Hammond has the best line saying, "I don't believe it. You're meant to come down here and defend me from these characters. And the only one I got on my side is the blood sucking lawyer."
Thanks for that.
But yeah, so Martin Farrow does a good job playing the guy, and he does meet with a memorable exit. So we start going
And
on.
of course, he leaves the two other important entities that were going to be give this park test run a big to do go is John Hammond's grandkids, Alex, aka Lex, and Tim Murphy.
Played by Ariana Richards and Joseph Mazzella, respectively. And here's the thing: Crichton always intended for the children to be in the novel. In fact, it was a bit of a concern of the publisher saying, "You want to make this a kids' book?" That's why he had to throw in a little more excessive, science talk and violence to make it more of an adult novel. But his point of view was saying, "What's going to be the most wondrous by these dinosaurs? The kids." So that's why we have kids in there. It's a viewpoint, and you got guys my age watching this movie when it's new, and we relate closely to guys like Tim, where we see our idols in like a guy like a Dr. Grant, and we want to kind of talk their ear off. And I mean, I was kind of that. I think I saw a lot of Tim in myself at that age, but he does it in a way where he's not annoying because you don't want a precocious kid where you're thinking, man, I hope those jaws snap over you. He's likable enough where you're like biting your fingers, nervous when he's pinned under a car and the Rex is trying to dig its nose in there. And
A quick side note. That moment where the T-Rex breaks through the top of that van there, that was not supposed to happen.
I
Or at
think
least the way they filmed it.
because
They were probably planning to have it break through, but in that one specific moment that you see on film where it went down, they were probably the animatronic went down a little bit further down than they expected. So the kids' reactions, the actors to that were pretty spot on, like one
oh,
to one, exactly what you expect to see on the screen.
and apparently it broke the corner glass because the whole glass was to come down as a solid, just the roof, but a piece of it chipped off, so that turned it dangerous for the stunt crew under there. So that's why everyone was nervous, but the reactions were pretty genuine. In fact, it does jump you up. But again, the children are good in a way that they don't make you want to wish that they get gobbled up. I'm sure there's people who do say, "Nah, kill them kids," but most of the time, the way they're portrayed, especially Ariana Richards, does play Lex a little more level-headed, but also has a funny thing that she's a bit of a tech enthusiast, a nerd, as her brother would say. What's funny
Yeah,
is,
she did. It is kind of telling when she's supposed to be like the level-headed one, but as soon as the lawyer darts when the T-Rex shows up, she starts to have this freak out moment of the fact that this guy literally left two kids alone with dinosaurs, and she thinks that's probably hits the reality to her. It's like, oh my god, this is actually dangerous. We're actually gonna die here,
yeah. So
which
what's
is a little disheartening considering the fact that in reading between the lines, there's something going on that John Hammond had. He couldn't meet with his lawyer at the beginning of the film because he had to meet with his daughter who was going through a breakup, and obviously probably to alleviate her, he agrees to take her children to his park to not only keep them away from all of the talk of divorce, which funny enough would happen again in Jurassic World, but would actually be able to help test his park with the actual premier audience that the park was intended for.
yeah on
And who
top
better to test that than his own grandchildren?
Yeah, and on top of that, they switch the ages in the book because in the book, Tim is the older brother who is tech savvy and knows stuff, and Lex is just a little kid. Now, unlike the movie, I think you would argue that book Lex was probably just begging to be chomped by a T Rex with how often she'd be not listening to the Grant's rules about, hey, stay down, don't do this. You're like, do you have a death wish, girl? But yeah, so it's a good thing they changed the characters to actually be a little more, bearable on screen.
It's understandable given that it's not the first roundabout that Stevens worked with kids. I mean, we have the E.T. we have a short round with Temple of Doom. So Steven understands kids. Like he pretty much he doesn't treat them as kids. He treats them as actors, professionals, and will be giving them directions just as much as the big actors will.
Like he said, he was telling on the scene, directing Joseph Mazzello, you go be talking to Dr. Grant like if he's a Sam Neill to you. Like, you know how meeting a Sam Neill is, Tim meeting a Dr. Grant is like meeting a Sam Neill for you. And then he gets it like, okay, so that's why he's like starstruck, but also like, hey, listen, what do you think of this theory or that theory? It does lead to some comedy where he's trying to talk to him about a book he's read, and Ham is like, okay, that's because Grant has a thing where he's not too keen with kids, as we'll get to in his part, but he over time develops it because to the point where he's caring for the well-being of these kids. Like you see genuine concern on his face when they're in a truck getting rolled over by a tyrannosaur. That look on his face is not like holy crap, look at the power. It's like, oh my god, the kids. That's a good subtle character development right there.
Oh my! And his heart probably dropped when the security gates activated and poor
Oh
Tim got
god,
electrocuted.
that
I would imagine I would want to be the fly on the wall to see the initial premiere to see people gut react to Tim shocked off the fence there. That
probably
that probably
a
scared.
loud gasp. Probably a loud gasp. So
And of course, everyone would probably feel a relief as soon as Tim gasps out and says, "3."
yes. So and the kids have the best, scariest scene in the whole movie. We
The
showed earlier.
kitchen.
Yes, where the raptors are stalking them, and like, because that's like the stuff of nightmares. That's like equivalent to that for me right now is when you play Alien Isolation and you start hearing that tracker go off and realize, oh crap, he's in the room with the unpredictable xenomorph. Lifeform XX211 xenomorph. They're officially called that now. That's probably a payback
It,
for me always calling them alien. Like, no, 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 they're not called xenomorphs, they're called alien. But anyway, off track. God, I hope Jurassic Park Survive gives me that same oh crap feeling when I'm in a room and the raptor suddenly shows up. If
I
that
hope you
game
hear
comes out.
something soon. Yeah, I really hope to hear something soon because I was perusing on YouTube. It's really been a year or probably more almost coming up when we got the initial trailer. But like, I'm sure they're working. They're probably having to deal with all. They 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 also definitely want to be falling under the precipice of okay, we have to make sure that these are dinosaurs, real, actual living beings that you have to run away and survive from. They're not like game monsters.
Yeah. So, but they got the best scene, and I thought they're done well done. There are kids in the movie that you actually root for because when you're a kid, you feel like you're them, and when you're an adult, you kind of want to protect them. So either way, I think they work, and Steven directed them so well. And Joseph Mazzello has gone on to become an editor and a actor in his own right. He recently acted in Bohemian Rhapsody, and he's still doing stuff. And Ariana Richards has retired from acting, but has become quite the painter. And she's still proud of
That,
her work on Jurassic Park.
that's wonderful to hear. But yeah, kids dealing with the dinosaur are probably the best, scariest scene in the movie. Huh? Kids dealing with dinosaurs. That seems like an idea right for something.
Yes.
But we'll
So,
get to that.
and then we have now probably the runaway star of this show that people love quoting that the guys become a meme. I'm going to put the meme up on screen right now. I think you know which one I'm going to bring up.
Oh my goodness. Well, we hope you enjoy this little tour treat, but there's no other way to introduce this guy than this, if you will, Mr. Josie Cat.
Yes. Okay. Where is it? Where? Oh God, I've seen so many variations of this. I'm gonna. Okay, I'm gonna pull up the image on screen. But this guy, I think in the book became the mouthpiece of Michael Crichton because he would be talking about like deeply profound scientific stuff. But oh come on. Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay.
Do 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 do.
Oh, for frack's sake! I'll just do it the window capture way. I was gonna put a full image, but I think this will suffice. There he is. the Doctor Malcolm, which the point is, it actually became a figure right there. But where is there it is. There it is. That's the image I'm talking about. That's the famous image. Is Jeff Goldblum as Doctor Malcolm?
I
Wait, is I don't think I have it on screen. Crap.
I can see it,
Oh, is it on the?
but then you close it. But yeah, so we had Dr. Ian Malcolm portrayed by Jeff Goldblum, as drunken Grandmaster lovely calls the Wizard of Oz.
That's so funny because in Wicked he's the wizard.
Oh yeah, he is. Wow, there's layers to that joke
Yeah,
there.
yeah. I am a sentimental man.
He's always a treat whenever he's on screen. Really wish Disney Plus didn't pull his own show off, but
Yeah, but
anyways.
yeah. So point is, the thing is that he has a lot of personality because Ian in the book is kind of a wet blanket, and he kind of gets morphine high for the rest of the book. But the personality
As
that
as John Hammond would put it, I bring scientists, you bring a rock star.
yes, this guy has an excessive, deplorable amount of excess of personality for a mathematician, because he's the one that keeps talking about chaos theory and chaotician, and how he keeps talking about how John's science project is doomed to fail from the very start. So, and but he always has some of the best zingers. Like one that's we always quote whenever we're expecting something doesn't show up. We have to say, like, we quote him by saying, "Now, John, you do intend to have dinosaurs on this dinosaur tour, yes?"
I really hate that man.
Right. Yes. So, Jeff
But
Goldblum was.
he's
Go on.
no, I was gonna say it's funny that he was kind of a little bit optimistic about it at first when he saw Brachio, but then as he probably had a different uh theme park how they were operate in his mind. It's like okay, so they'll probably handle it like any zoo would. There'll just be like there'll be like live bursts at hand, and they'll be able to rectify that. But no, when they describe how they handle it, that's where he goes like, "Oh, the numbers in my head are
Yeah.
giving me bad images."
Because if you notice, okay. He's laughing with the tour when Mr. DNA comes on screen, but when they describe how they got the DNA, you see him start to rise out of his seat.
It's by the way, a quick aside: the Mr. DNA scene, while corny and pardon the phrase cringe to some, it's actually a very well put together scene to get the audience caught up to the science of how they actually did all of this. They could explain all of this in some mumbo jumbo talk like how movies normally do, but here with the corniness and genuine look of the movie to actually handle it like as it's an actual theme park tour, it helps actually bring the audience up to speed along with the characters in the movie. So literally in one fell swoop, this little doodle of a Mr. DNA literally explains the whole plot of the movie in about what was it, like 5 minutes?
Yeah, like it's just basically, like it says, yeah, it's for the kids. It works really well for the kids because they're able to understand it. But also it makes the science like, okay, dinosaurs died, mosquitoes bit. Okay, so here's the and plus the music and the animation feels very Animaniacs, I might add. But
Like, which is funny again because that was also an Emblem side project going on.
yeah, like here it is. Here,
Again, we are not kidding. Steven Spielberg had a finger on the pulse of pretty much everything pop culture. Yeah,
so,
it definitely looks like something you would see in Animaniacs.
and the voice. I love how he says dinosaurs. Now, obviously, I'm not playing any audio because I don't want to get claimed by Universal. They can be litigious at times. But see, this does a good job of telling you exactly how the thing works. You see it like, basically, explain it to me like I'm five. Well, it explains it to us like we're five, but not in a way that makes you feel stupid for watching it. So, yeah.
Especially the fact that it's scientists watching this. Say, okay, so I know thing or two about like extinct animals and fossils. So explain to me how you're able to get this dead piece of rock to become a living thing.
By the way, they have successfully taken out blood from a preserved a bug, a beetle of some kind, recently, very recently. The trick now is unscrambling the DNA, so you don't know what's what, because all that blood's mixing together. But see, there's Ian getting out of his seat. That's the part I'm talking about. He's realizing, oh, okay, so that's what they're doing. So
Yeah, like I know this is a factor in the book. It's like they don't know exactly which animal they're getting from in the mosquitoes. It's just like they just get the mosquito, they get the blood. Oh, hey, look, it's a Theriziosaurus this time. Let anyone want to put bets on if the next mosquito is the actual Triceratops this time or not?
So what they would do is they would probably take the amber from certain parts of the world where they're dug up. Like, okay, this is where Triceratops are mostly found. This is where Tyrannosaurus are mostly found. That kind of thing, probably. But yeah,
Which, funny enough, that whole science and bit of gamble actually does happen in one of the video games, Jurassic World Evolution.
yeah. So, but Malcolm is the guy that is saying this is all going to fail. When it does, he does have the line of "Boy, do I hate being right all the time." Now, Jeff Goldblum did have input on the character. During the scene with the Tyrannosaurus breakout, Ian was supposed to run away just like the lawyer and cower, but Jeff thought, what wouldn't it be better for me if I like tried to distract him so he could save the kids? So Sam Neill had no idea. He was like, okay, I'm doing my scene with the flare, and then he suddenly hears the flare open up, and he sees Jeff Goldblum also waving. So he has the line of, "Hey, Ian, freeze!" But yeah, so he said that, yeah, that made him laugh that day. He had no idea that Jeff was going to do that too. So he
Up, quick notes. John asks, I always wondered how they produced a dinosaur egg if there wasn't a dinosaur to make the eggs back then. Quickly, they do actually explain. Well, it's not directly in the movie, but but actually, yes, they do. They
yeah,
actually
emu
use
ostrich.
ostrich emu eggs to actually get the embryo inside to actually be the dinosaur instead of, well, just hatching another emu or ostrich.
Yeah,
So they have the means to do it, and once that happens, then they repeat the process over and over again. Because again, we're playing with God here. We're saying, okay, we make these eggs, we make them dinosaur eggs now.
what's funny is they make them very marketable too. That they look like how you imagine a dinosaur, because it doesn't look like a real egg you find in the fossils. It looks like an egg you would say, "Oh, this is how an egg would look, like a oversized chicken egg." Now, if the egg
And then
opened,
later in the movie, we actually see actual dinosaur eggs have hatched and broken and are out in the
they
wild.
look more like ovals rather than the weird round oblong egg shape, chicken egg shape we're used to. Which, fun fact, the alien teaser was done on a brownie tray with a chicken egg with a light inside it for that famous trailer. But there I go again. But anyway, point is though, Jeff does a good job playing him eccentric and fun. The point was that he's kind of become a reoccurring character due to how beloved he is. In fact, he was so popular that even though the character bought it at the end of the book, they brought him back for the sequel book where they even say, "Aren't you supposed to be dead?" His simple reply is, "The surgeons worked wonders."
Well, I guess almost. What is it like? Deal with a lawsuit. It's like, okay, we'll be able to fix you up. We'll pay everything, as long as you don't sue us for it.
Yeah. So now we got the other member of our intrepid trio, the female in this whole group, Dr. Ellie Sattler, played by the lovely Laura Dern, who asks Derica here. Anytime she's on screen, I can help but gush, saying, "Gosh, how does she look so good 20, 30 years later?"
Oh my goodness, she is really beautiful. I really hope I could be even close to that
Hey, but yeah,
down the line.
yeah,
But
but she's more than just a pretty face, though. She actually has.
it's no, it's funny because like when we looked up when we were rewatching it, we realized she was barely even breaking out of the 20s when she filmed it. In the way she gave her acted, you imagine like, oh, she was 30. No, she was practically like I think 20 when
Yeah,
she filmed.
and by release date too, and she does a good job of standing toe to toe with Sam Neill and Jeff Goldblum in scenes, and she does have a funny side to her, like when she's like playing along with Ian's butterfly effect drop. She also has again. She has okay. This is gonna sound weird. She has a great scream because she delivers a blood curdling scream when the T Rex is like ramming the jeep and is like right on top of them. And I'm thinking, how did she have the lung power to pull off like that? Is like in my book one of the most iconic screams up there with Fay Ray's and King Kong and stuff like that.
Oh my gosh, I had to look up something quickly because I suddenly have a thought in my mind right now. It's like the way she screamed. How is she not among the scream queens in horror?
Well, she is.
Because I had to,
She didn't do a lot of horror films, probably. That's why.
she had to have done something. Let's see, blah blah blah. Blah. Filmography. Let's see here. Da 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 da. Anything popping up? No, 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 no. Nope, 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 not that one. Nope.
While you're looking at that, I'm just gonna
Really,
put
I am honestly amazed that you'd think after seeing her scream in Jurassic Park, like some horror directors feel like, I need to have her scream for my monster.
like here it is right here. This is a scene where the T Rex is almost on top of them, and that lookout she gives is also pretty iconic. But yeah, like every time I rewatch this scene, I get taken just how she looks like she's really gonna die. Or she's like, yeah, just that face and everything. You know, it goes all bug eyed, and I think I could play a little bit of audio. I don't know, it might pop up. Yeah. Plus, it's also the iconic Jeff Goldblum line. Yeah, he repeats it again in Independence Day.
Must go faster.
Let's go faster, let's go faster.
One time I heard him say fifth gear, I thought he said fuck this.
Get off the stick! Bloody move!
Here comes the scream. Listen, listen. That is a good scream. Yeah. But yeah, and the point is though, but it's like it says, she just does a good job of giving you the. She's not a damsel in distress, but she's not super bossy. She's not a bitch, for lack of a better words. I'm not trying to say there's characters who are like that, but it could have been easy to make her either the college student of that's kind of how she's written in the book, is the college student that's kind of enamored with Grant, but she's competent in her own right. She does throw in a couple of modern female takes at the time that are still funny, like when Goldblum does this whole thing with God destroys dinosaurs, God creates man, man destroys God, and man creates dinosaurs. And she throws in dinosaurs eat the man and women inherits the earth. What's funny is Grant smiles at her like, oh, that's Ellie, whereas Ian is looking like, shit, that's a very real possibility.
Better believe it.
But yes, she, like it says though, she has a couple.
Oh, I feel like your scream when she's encountered by the raptor is a little bit more very, very telling. She's literally screaming out. Well, it's funny. I know for a fact that she's screaming out "goddamn," but of course the subtitles will say, I think it's just said "oh no" or something. It's like,
but she, like I
come
said,
on.
But the thing is, even though she
could be worse. Could be. I was gonna make a joke like, well, it could be worse. It could literally be Sigourney's voice dubbed over what is clearly what she's mouthing. Fuck this.
In Galaxy Quest, yes. So the thing is that she does run into tense situations, but she doesn't lose her head. She's borderline goes catatonic, but she doesn't go like she doesn't become useless, which is refreshing. Cause it would have been easy to say, oh, she can't do nothing in the face of the raptors, and she had to have someone come and save her. But no, she got her own ass out of that shed.
The worst that happens to her is that she somehow gets her egg broken, which they did have a scene for that, but you could. A very quick, easy throwaway is that she could have probably broken it when she was trying to close the gate on the raptor, and it snapped at the impact from the raptor itself.
Because that thing did jump at the gate, and she blocked it. Say again, I think for the joke that Laura Dern didn't have to do much acting when it came to reacting to the raptor. I think she legit freaked out. I mean, one of my good artist friends talks about how he had to be escorted. I mean, he kind of hates that scene because of how it jump scared him as a kid, and he never forgave it to the point where we were watching on a stream and he yelled out "F you, Shed Raptor" once it popped out of the this iconic line of "Mr. Hammond, we're back for business." And then again, it doesn't look like there's much acting for Laura because either she legit got scared or she's doing a really good job of like selling that she's like just
Wow!
yeah, and then there it is, and then boom. So probably right there, but like I said, she does a good job. Like she's pretty capable. Oh, there's Mr. Arnold's unfortunate scene, but like I said, she does a good job. Where she could have panicked, but she just again sells it pretty well. And Laura Dern she's gone on to done a lot of great stuff. Of course, she's probably well known for she jokes about how she'll still be remembered for this movie for by little kids asking, "Aren't you the lady that stuck your hands into dinosaur poopy?" She's thinking, and I wanted to work with Steven Spielberg. She thought, but because
There's one big pile of shit.
yes, another great Ian line. So thing is that, but she's so fun, and I was so happy when Jurassic World came around and Mattel started releasing figures. That one of my earliest finds was a Dr. Grant, and I had to obviously get a Dr. Sattler, but she was always sold out in stores, so I had to go to eBay, but I got her for a very good price, and it's up in my box somewhere. But I have a Legacy Collection, Ellie Sattler. It's not the Hammond Collection one, which is more articulation. Funny enough, that one comes with replaceable hands. The regular hands and hands that have the gloves that are slightly tinted brown from the famous, big pile scene. In fact, her Lego set for the 30th anniversary of Jurassic Park Lego set is an Explorer that comes with a Triceratops and a buildable pile of Lego poo.
Well,
I know.
guess you pay for it, I guess.
Yeah, but what's funny though is that she amused us that during the scene when they're at the end with the raptors, and she's holding on upside down from a dinosaur skeleton. She was always upside down hanging, and she said Steven Spielberg was taunting me, saying, "And you wanted to be an actress, huh? This is what you got. You wanted to be an actress." It was pretty funny. God, while the making of Jurassic Park is a good thing about the tech and how it got there, watch the Return to Jurassic Park retrospective on most DVDs because it tells you the cast talking about the. You could tell they had a blast making it. It wasn't a hellish shoot. It was tricky. It was difficult, but they didn't feel like, "Gosh, why'd I do this movie?" A lot of them look like they genuinely have fun and fond memories working on this thing.
Yeah, it's funny that the return type of documentaries focus more on the people, whereas obviously the documentaries at the time were all about the big gangbusters. It's like, ooh, dinosaurs, how do you do it? Like, can you show us how what the whole process? We want to see the dinosaurs.
Yeah. So now on to the last man, the dinosaur man, Dr. Alan Grant, played by Sam Neill. Great Australian actor who's gone to do a lot of stuff. Before this, he was Damien in the final conflict of the Omen trilogy, but he's done a lot of other projects too. And I think I first remembered him from this, and also 1996 is around that time. Paul Anderson's Event Horizon. Where we're going, we no need eyes to see. But
Think he would be also in the Mouth of Madness.
oh god,
from
he
John
was
Carpenter.
great in that one. I loved him in that one.
I still need to see it.
You got to see
It's
it.
such I know I have to. I'm a John Carpenter girl, for God's sakes.
Yeah, but yeah. So point is though, he brings a reality to Grant where he's not like your oh look if like not to say this would have been distracting, but if you got like a Harrison Ford type playing Dr. Grant, I think that might become a little too distracting. Like if you had a Stallone or a Schwarzenegger playing Grant, it might not paint him as this is a guy who.
Well,
Hmm,
I'd argue if they were making this movie in the '80s, that Harrison would definitely have been the guy to do it.
yeah,
Because he wasn't as. It's funny. It like the '70s he was kind of like the dreamboat, and then '80s he was kind of like the everyman having to go through all this shit, and then the '90s he was like, okay, I've seen everything, I know everything, so just listen to me and I'll get you out of this.
and then by the 2000s, he's now the grumpy old man, which I love. But I love that he's a grumpy old man that can turn red and throw cars with his bare fist. But yeah, but
But yeah, if this was later, if this is earlier, it would have been Harrison. But in the '90s, Sam was your guy.
well, actually, in this, gosh, I don't have my camera on, but Erica's gonna see. There is a famous concept art painting that it became the basis for this movie, where it shows Dr. Grant running with the kids in hand, and the way they rendered him, he almost looks like Harrison Ford. Like, I gotta find the picture. I'm gonna show it to you real quick. They actually remade it for the visual history book, but they actually made it Sam Neill with the kids as they appear in the movie. But I have it right here. And but I thought Sam Neill, he's well known enough that he looks like an expert talking about, but he's not like the Tweety nerd type. Because if they casted like a Matthew Broderick to play him, you probably would think, okay, this is supposed to be our badass leading us through the jungle. Like he's not supposed to be an action star, but you know he does kind of look cool when he holds that Spas 12 shotgun.
Yeah, no, but unfortunately, Roland Emmerich wouldn't get the byline of that when he did his movie. But
Funny enough, he did have Jeff Goldblum in one of his, and he basically played the nerdy type character with David in Independence Day. Where is it? I should have taken scans, but I want to show it to you real quick. But there's some beautiful concept arts in this book. But anyway, Sam Neill does a good job. Like I think a scene that just perfectly encapsulates him is the scene where he's talking about how much he likes raptors and how cool they are. Like he's almost enthusiastic, but not in a obsessed way. But he still go like, yeah, this guy he's passionate about raptors. Then some kid mouths off, and then he proceeds to scare him with the detailed story of here's how these guys can kill you. Oh, I found it. So I'm going to lift it up to the camera. I'm going to show you, and it's probably not be easy to see, but there it is, the kids, and you can see they kind of made him look a little bit like Harrison Ford.
yeah, I can see Harrison's likeness in that one.
This was made early in planning, but if you notice, Tim is the older one there, and you can see a little girl being dragged there. That was meant to be Lex, and you can see they're being menaced by a big.
The illustration for the book, then.
And then over here they recreated it for this visual history, but you can see that it actually is Sam Nell's likeness with the kids in the appropriate ages, still being menaced by the same proto T-Rex. But yeah, now what's funny is he goes through an arc. He goes to a guy who's very like kids, because I'm guessing he can't relate to them too much because he's like more into his dinosaur bones and stuff.
It could also be a fact that he doesn't really care for young generations who don't value the past and all that.
Because the
Like
first
everything,
kid we
like,
see,
kids are always like obsessed with newfangled stuff, new technologies and all that, and they'll probably look at old things and go like, yeah, we're here now, and that thing's dead, so who cares what that thing went through?
yeah, like I said, when the kid said that looks like a 6-foot turkey, he decides to go again scare him about how this thing looks like a bird, but he'll find you. The other ones hit you. They cut your stomach open. You're like he's telling him, show a little respect. God, everyone thought that kid was gonna grow up to be Chris Pratt for some reason. But
Just nobody tells. Who has the heart to tell Sam that he's describing a Deinonychus rather than a Velociraptor? Unless he's discussing the Utah
which was found
Velociraptors,
after this movie. But yeah, so but yeah, he does a good job of like telling you he believes he knows his stuff, and he gets enthusiastic when he comes to the park. When he sees the brachiosaur, when he sees the
Ian's doing the cast here.
oh, yeah, there he is. Welcome, Ian. But yeah, I was gonna say though that he has enthusiasm. Like the scene when he finds out they actually bred raptors, he's the first to go to the pen, and while everyone's looking almost horrified, like, good God, what are these things? You see him almost like thinking he never dreamed that his theories would be playing out right before his eyes, and you have him asking all these questions to, ironically, Grant. I keep wanting to call him Hammond for some reason. Grant talking to Muldoon is the same way Tim talks to him. I just saw that parallel right now because he's like, are these things fast for a biped? He's talking about everything, and it's like he does have one of my favorite lines that it brings the waterworks for me when they're on the tour and they see the Triceratops, and he says, she was always one of my favorites since I was a kid, and now I see she's the most beautiful thing I ever saw. I'm like, and that was their first day of shooting in Hawaii. Was with the big trike, and
I, I I'm pretty sure at that moment when they were filming that, pretty much solidified to the actors. Okay, this movie is actually gonna be legit. If all the dinosaurs are gonna look this good, yeah, we're definitely gonna give our A game to how we're gonna react to
because it could have been
these effect shots.
easy to phone it in because about not.
Ooh, dinosaurs! Wow, they're so real lifelike. And of course, Steve is like, "Okay, everyone, we're getting set up. Here's the Triceratops." And going on, it's like, "Holy shit, that's a Triceratops!"
If like back to Laura Dern, she was looking like she was having an emotional breakdown of joy just being next, like, "Hey, baby," talking to this trike, like if it's real, and it was acting against her. So they thought, yeah, Stan Winston
Ian says,
Studios.
"Grant." Ian says, "Grant and Ian share a lot in common. They both hate being right."
Yeah. So he does a good job of it, because it could have been easy to make him cynical and jaded, because he does have the same worries Ian has when he says, "Listen, dinosaurs and man have been brought together for the first time in 65 million years. What could even happen?" That's what he's saying. We don't even know what's going to happen because, and when they see, and he's the expert too. Like when they see the T Rex, he's telling Ian the advice. I'm sure Gennaro wishes he heard the advice. He says, "Keep absolutely still. It's vision's based on movement." Bullshit, but still, he's you believe his expertness in that scene, and you can tell he's another great scene with him that's very human is when they're crawling up the tree that saved him from the broken explorer, and he's telling him like, "Come
Ooh,
on."
I just had a thought, but I'll bring it up when we talk about the big girl herself. But keep going.
He's saying, "Ever climbed the tree? Dad ever build you a tree house before?" It's like, "Oh no, no." He probably says, "Don't look down." He even looks down and kind of closes his eyes, like, "Oh, why'd I look down?" And Sam Neill said he always knew he wasn't in danger when that thing was coming down, but he says probably having a 5-ton vehicle rolling down the stage in his field of view coming at him was probably one of the more tense moments in his film career. He said, but he said, I knew I wasn't in danger. I trusted the crew entirely, but still, seeing that coming right at you, you're like, oh shit. So, and he
Lauren
evolves.
just looked a lot like my parents did back in the day, and said,
Oh, that's great. So, what's great is that he goes from like, "Why do I want? I want nothing to do with kids." He seems almost very annoyed at Tim at first, and like I said, by the end, he's like arm in arm, like if they were his own kids, and he promises to protect them from the thing, and he doesn't seem like disheartened that dinosaurs live again, because he's all like, I guess we'll just have to change our jobs, evolve, like rather than just stay in the past and fall. And he goes to looking like a badass when he gets out that shotgun when he's all just the two raptors, huh? So he goes through a whole arc where you're going like, dang, this in the book he is very much more like Jack Horner or Robert Backer in person. Uh, that he's as they're going in down the river, he's like giving them all this information on the dinosaurs, exactly their habitats, where they live. So he's like a tour guide. If anything, he's like that Robert Backer Burke looking guy in the Jurassic Park CD-ROM game, where you get random dinosaur facts. In fact, I think in the book they describe Alan as having a big old scruffy beard.
"Huh."
So I guess he was based more off of like a Jack Horner or a Robert Burke back then. So, but yeah, you really he's lovable. That again, that look has become iconic. Where you go to cosplaying conventions, have guys with the khaki hat and the blue overshirt with the red bandana and the khaki pants.
It's so funny. So Steven kind of unironically set the precedence for certain uh, forms of uh, work, where the archaeologists apparently need a fedora, leather jacket, and khakis and all that, like Indiana Jones. And the paleontologists say, okay, you need a denim top, you need a scarf, and you definitely need to have a hat.
Yeah, and what's funny is how, and I think in Dominion, if anything, Dr. Grant was taking from Indy's wardrobe with the whole leather jacket and fedora. Son of a bitch.
A loving, like, homage, little hints of the pre-productions of the first movie, or just an odd coincidence. You
Yeah.
decide.
But yeah, so Sam Neill rounds it out, and we again every one of these guys is acting to the critters. So when you see him like nose to nose with the big Tyrannosaurus, he's looking like if I make a wrong move, this thing will eat me. That he's selling you on that. So I think
Okay, so
you're all
we are.
saying we talked about the humans, but you guys are gonna have dinosaurs on this dinosaur video.
And again, once again, we thank you all for sticking around with us. If you have, it is probably late night for some of us, but we're still gung ho for this tour as we got our main attractions. The very talk of this whole tour to begin with, the dinosaurs,
No fucking way.
and of course we're gonna go through these almost in order. I'd say in order. For the first three, it is, but for the last three, it's kind of like all over the place. But I think the last three are stacked where they are for their importance to us and to the fandom. So, of course, you start with the very first dinosaur anybody ever sees, aside from the quick glances of the big one in the think tank there at the beginning. But the one that literally got everyone floored when they saw it back in '93, our beloved little Brachiosaurus.
Ah, yes. And that one, Steven probably wanted to do full size, but he says that was probably just his wishful thinking to like make a full sized that
I,
creature
I'm
with.
sure he, I'm sure he could have possibly done if they had like put in like okay. So it's funny to talk about theme parks for this brief moment, given the theme of this movie. But in stuff like Disney, there's always this like forced perspective, the way they build things. Like certain ways they'll look like they're really big when you're like on the spot looking up, when in reality they're not really as tall as you think. Like for example, that Hollywood Tower of Terror probably looks huge and gigantic, with especially with the windows as they get smaller and smaller up. But in reality, it's probably like I don't know, like 2 stories
But as
rather than how it looks like 5 stories.
but as we know, Steven loves to do stuff in camera.
I would just say like he could have done it, but he would have to do a lot of low angles, and there's only so many ways you can like get away with that.
So this was the animal that had to be out of necessity CG for the wide shots. Although we do get a very convincing brachiosaur head for the scene when they sleep in a tree, and the brachiosaur decides to go ahead and feast on it. And I keep telling Erica this. There's a scene I loved that Stan Winston's puppet makes that it makes it look like the Brachiosaur is smiling when Grant offers the branch to it. I'm gonna pull it up because, I mean, again, I think it's the scale. So this is actually an accurate size for Brachie. So you can imagine making the full body for this sucker. You probably need a whole like 747 hanger for it. But yeah, you'll see it right here that it's coming. Look at the size of that thing. But you can see the texture, the eyes, and they base the movement of how it eats off of a cow. So you kind of see the way it chews its jaws. Have you ever seen a cow chew? It chews with a rotating motion. Watch, look right here. Look at the way its mouth moves. Here comes the smile. Look at like, oh, oh my god, that scene brings me to like, it is such a whimsical scene. And it runs the risk of looking a little too Flintstones if you don't make it look right, but they put enough animal gestures. The eyes have an almost cow-like quality. The way it chews, again, it's very realistic. Like, look at the skin texture. Like this, if they, like I said, it runs the risk of looking very Flintstone if you're not careful, because the Flintstones movie did come out during the dinosaur boom. Like, look.
Yeah.
But yeah, Stan Winston Studios, they worked miracles on this production.
And it's still amazing given the fact that they had we've seen this behind the scenes. They were really meticulous about it. It's like it's not just that oh we could make this Brachiosaur appear. You have to also remember like, well, okay, how would it look like is the Earth under it kind of shifted away? What how much a shake and rumble is it when it moves up and then lands down back on its feet? There also has to be a little bit of a wind texture going on and all that. So many different details to make this big, lovable girl to come alive for all of us.
You called her Bernice, if I remember.
Yes,
But yes,
She will always she will always be beloved to the fandom.
yeah,
But to me, she will be Bernice.
yeah. So, like I was saying, you're right. Like you mentioned, we were watching it on 4K, and you said you saw a detail with the tree leaves that you didn't notice before the first time you saw it on other formats. I think you told me that, like, wow, I actually can see like the twigs falling as she's like taking that, pulling that branch during her little tippy toe reach.
Exactly. It's always fun whenever you get to see. I know it's annoying that you had whenever they bring up a new format. It's like, oh, this is even more crisper and clear. It's like, to be fair, they're trying to get these things to look high quality as if like from the projector from a movie screen. Because I've gone to movie rescreenings, and there's always details you never think of whenever you're seeing something like on like a little bit of a compact screen at your own home. Like, take for example, for the longest time, I didn't realize in Toy Story that Buzz Lightyear had like a little tab on the front of his uh, glass visor. It's invisible. It's like right at his emblem logo on his neck, but it didn't snap to me until I realized like, oh, it's probably the thing that helps the kid to open or close it, but also keeps it from falling into the insert lay. It it's just, I know it's a dumb little detail, but it's
There's some,
something you don't notice until you see it on a big, huge honking screen.
well, I mean, there's just something very magical about retro CG. Like, I know we talk about CG getting better and better and more perfect, but uh, you see some of them, like, the age is starting to show a tiny bit, but it's in a more timeless quality. If there's anything to compare it to, I'd probably compare it to, like, the suitmation in Godzilla, where there's some suit shots that you can tell have not stood the test of time, but there's some that have, like, a romantic quality to them, and I think the CG that's showing its age still has a romanticism where it still looks better than your worst CG shot of something like, say, Mortal Kombat Annihilation. But
Just thinking about the scenes of that climax. Ugh.
well, even they thought like, "What the hell are we filming?" and they stopped it right away. So we got our next big gal on the tour. We have our lovely lady, probably one of the more popular dinosaurs when it comes to fiction. Like when you think of a dinosaur, you think of three shapes: a long neck, a T Rex, or a three horn. And in this case, we have the Triceratops, which 100% practical. And again, as mentioned before, the first day of shooting, Stan Winston said, "We if we got blooded on our first day, or if we flew, that would depend on how this day went." And it went off without a hitch. It's like another iconic moment.
It's it didn't cross my mind until you pointed out that yeah, this is the only dinosaur that's full like practical. Like for something like Brachio and Tyrannosaurus, they do have moments in scenes where they're practical too, but there's like lizard dies literally by their CG. Triceratops is right there. It's always right there. It's always on Vista screen. There's never a cutaway where it's like, oh, that's a very fancy CGI shot. No, they had a whole dinosaur to deal with, and to be fair, she didn't do nothing. She just kind of laid there the entire time.
Well, she's not the only completely practical one. That would be my little Fanny lady as well. She's also 100% practical with no CG inserts.
Well, they had easy means to do that.
Oh, because she's
Consider
small.
the fact, yeah, it's so easy to make a dinosaur that small, but when you got the big girls, they're dinosaurs are known for one thing: they're big, colossal beasts. So it takes a lot of work to make sure that their work. If they're small dinosaurs,
Uh,
that very same year, Super Mario Brothers movie had a small Yoshi dinosaur.
you're talking about, it's easy to do, but the fact that she's full size, like this is exactly like the size of the skeleton. So a uh, to see a full size, like they mentioned, they had to make sure that it looked real, and it did. Like I think the actors' reactions are 100% genuine.
Yeah, because it's so easy to make like a stand-in prop, but this thing is blinking its eyes. It's got like slight bits of mucus going off its nose. It's breathing in a very rhythmic tone. It's moving its what's the term? It's not a paw. It's stump. It's moving its stumps like gently to and fro.
So here,
It's a living, breathing thing.
Stan was very proud that they got that doing, and to see people acting against it. I mean, you got Sam Neill resting alongside the thing and hearing it breathe, and you're believing because he's believing that it's breathing. You believe that it's breathing. But yeah, like I said, it's just the size. You don't have to do much imagination, and on a big screen, that trike feel. In fact, you feel very sad for it. Why is she sick? Why is she feeling very you know, drowsy and dead? Because she's on the ground right there because she's tranked. Because otherwise she'd be aimlessly moving around and bumping her head against stuff. So that's why they had to do that with her. But do you have a
So
nickname?
I had I growing up, I always had very did I have a nickname for this one? Uh, I tried so hard not to go with Sarah from the Lost World,
Land
Land
Before
Before
Time.
Time. Um, I'm I'm gonna call her Tracy.
That's that. Oh god. Oh, like the one in Toy Story. 3, I think.
No, no.
That's
Toy Story
Trixie.
3 is Trixie actually.
Trixie. Okay,
It's Tracy,
that works though.
but yeah, for the longest time when I was growing up watching this, I always had this theory: is like when the Triceratops was being sick, it was probably like a telltale sign of like, oh, maybe the dinosaurs are actually starting to become asexual and like breed out their eggs.
Or
But watching it recently, it did. There was a different theory that kind of like broke that. It's like, oh, okay, so I guess it was probably got sick from eating something. Because I think you said like, no, it's not. She's not pregnant or anything.
yeah, and on top of that, uh, the eyes were all bloodshot and everything like that. And in the book, it was a drunk or very sick stegosaur. In fact, it's so funny. There was so much stegosaurus in the merchandise and stuff, but no stegosaurus in the actual movie. That I'm sure when Steven said, "Where's the stego? Where's the stego?" when he made the sequel, he's all, "Fine, here's your stego." Megan's favorite dinosaur, I might add. Anyway,
It looks like Ian approves my nickname for Chice.
and then
So
so
it's kind of sad it only just gets one scene, but it's a scene that sticks out for both the actors on the set and for the moviegoers. Quickly, we move on to the Gallimimus. They don't get to do a whole lot except for that one incredible scene, which we actually saw at the making of, where they were like, okay, we're gonna do the most stupid, dumb, ambitious thing. We're gonna make a moving CGI effect with live actors.
because like they said, they don't want to do okay. Every time we're far away, it's a CG shot. I want to actually be in the face of the actors while these things are flying all around him. And again, it's a thrilling scene where people remember where you're like, oh, it's a Gallimimus, and then there are multiple creatures, but they're not like replicated where oh that's the same guy replicated like 20 make 10 dinosaurs feel like 100. But on screen you're going to see that that they Steven was ambitious to go to Hawaii and have them run at the camera for extended periods of time. Like this shot was considered ambitious. Look at it, running past them and everything. So that's all they really do is run, but that's to show you how the actors can run with these guys in their face.
It's I can't help but also think of like some of the animators acting like these things, hopping around, running, so that they can get like
The motions.
reference to animate later. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. because, like they said, I don't want them to just be on their computers just typing because it becomes cumbersome. So he says we got to know how our bodies move. We got to do that kind of mime classes and stuff like that.
To be fair, to bring up a point we made earlier about the old school animators getting ousted by the new ones, not necessarily. The old guard actually were brought in to help. Like, okay, so you want your animation to look a little bit more smoothly, like this way. It's like we have the tech, but we're still kind of fresh on the know-how of this, and so it what most think like, oh, it's no brainer. This was how like the new process was gonna get in the way of uh the old guards. No, the old guards still got their dues, so it's still very nice to know. Like, because I for a long time I honestly thought like when they brought the CGI thing, like they scrapped everything with the old animation style, but no, they still brought in the old animators. They gave the go, they gave the know-how. They gave little samples. So like, okay, so you want them to move like this. You want to move like that. Otherwise, the animators, if they were trying to freehand do it, they would probably have made them a little bit too cartoonish. So it's good to know that they were still able to have a hand in making this, even though their methods didn't get the final product.
Well, yeah. So we, like as we know, we have Vegisauruses that we just talked about, but these things have teeth. So we're gonna be talking about my personal favorite, which used to scare the bejesus out of me. That'd be the Dilophosaurus, who was the first dinosaur on the tour that didn't show because apparently they were a little shy. One detail I noticed on my rewatch is that there's a little sign on the Dilophosaur that says, "Please keep windows up," because as they found out when they cloned these guys is that they spit.
So, anyways, so yeah, we have the Dilophosaurus, which funny enough, in real time, the in real actual paleontology, they're not actually as tiny, nor do they have the type of frills. In fact, they're pretty much just raptors, or Deinonychuses. Ugh, it's so weird to have to deal with balancing real dinosaurs and Jurassic Park dinosaurs, but essentially, the Dilophosaurus have this. I guess they were portrayed to have a little bit of a quality that shared with the mutated batch of having, because in the books there not only is it amphibian DNA, but it's raptor and avian. So obviously something got muddled in the works, where to the point where we have this new theme park generated predator that is able to make all this yeah. It's funny. I'm not sure I have a lot to talk about the dinosaur, but it does have a notable scene with Dennis Nedry to act like this innocuous, innocent thing. This it's very unassuming. You think like the way the park narration described it, think there'd be this like very dangerous, very scary thing, but it's almost acted like a puppy almost. It's kind of hilarious. But then, of course, as soon as it realizes that Nedry is free game, it puts out its frills and gives off quite a scary display before spitting out that black tar, that uh, venom, essentially, to blind its prey's eyes and give Nedry his unqualified end. And so, yeah. So I explained entirely the Dialepsis deal, how unassuming it was, and Nedry's fate. So, but I'm sure you of all people have a lot to say about Dilophosaurus, considering that's one of your favorite girls.
What's funny is the fact that, well, in the movie it's much more smaller because in the book they're described to be 20 feet long.
hmm But I went through all that, but you have a fondness every time that she pops up in any material, you're like, there she is, there she is.
Like as mentioned before, I used to be scared of the darn thing because I didn't expect it to just like pop up and making that horrendous sound and spit at you. but
But yeah, it did its dirty deed of cleaning up the ill-begotten, greedy, corrupt computer hacker for getting the whole park uh, down its power.
there was a bit of a humorous moment where he says, "Look at me, I got no food on me, huh? I got nothing food on me," and he's looking him up and down like, sure, look like a guy would have a lot of food on him. Like if she's sizing him up.
Maybe I'll start with the knees first. They look a little bit chunky.
But yeah, they had a whole running. That thing is completely in the puppet. I think. Wait, I know what got me. It was the making of footage. I'll be careful with that going forward.
Ian says, I remember how mad I was that the left service was the timeline for JP3, but not in the actual movie.
Well, since you covered the dialogue, I think it's best for us to go into the star attractions that made every 90s kid love dinosaurs. The Raptors.
Oh yeah, technically they should be Deinonychuses, but as game apologists lovingly joked, given their nicknames, that wouldn't have worked. You bred cusses? Yeah, that didn't work.
So, the Raptors are described as 6 feet tall, tiger stripes, and have sickle claws, which is a feature of Deinonychus. But actual raptors were about the size of a freaking turkey, for crying out loud. Much more smaller.
Aside from the Utah, which would only be discovered after the fact.
But still, yeah. We could argue that
I'm,
Hammond.
I'm sure that Crichton probably thought that Velociraptor sounded a little bit more ferocious and vicious.
Actually, that's exactly the reason why. But he described them pretty much as they appeared in the movie. And again, the thing that's scary about them is that T-Rex and those other ones are just instinctual. They're just big eating machines like the shark from Jaws. But these guys think. They actually will look at you and everything. And they'll decide how to kill you.
Or they'll pretty much catch you off guard and take you by surprise.
Clever.
Which I'm sure I'm sure that one raptor was thinking when it was scaring off Ellie with that bit in the darkness.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, like it says, the kitchen scene just completely put people on the edge of their seats because you got these things that are smart. They're hearing for them, and they make those unearthly sounds, those screeches, those barks, which you always love to be reminding me about the origin of those barks.
So yeah, when the noises you hear when they're calling for others, when that one is especially calling for backup, yeah, that's a reworked sound of turtle sex. Yep. So I always remember if you slow it down and pitch it up higher, you'll definitely hear that noise of some slowpokes really having to go for it. But yeah. But these velociraptors are actually pretty scary, especially since we don't get to see them until the power goes back on, and even then, that's too late. It's even more scary considering the fact that the first hint that they're a dangerous thing is when all the power goes out, and Muldoon sees the fence is broken apart, and you see footsteps, and even Muldoon points out, like, God, even Nedry wasn't daft or foolish enough to mess with the raptors.
Well, because yeah, these guys they mentioned how they had like 9 of them bred, but yeah, the big one ended up killing all the others because she wanted to take control of everything. Now there is a theory that those eggs that Grant finds when we're in the park might have been raptor eggs because of the 2 toes, and people say, but the raptors never left the compound. But what if they ran into the old compound when they were, trying to find a way back to the center?
I don't know. even with the 2 foot thing, there's still also should be an imprint for where their sickle toes should be. I know hatchlings, they shouldn't have their sickle toes prominently that much yet, but even then, they're it's still just mostly 2 foot. I always figure they're the Gallimimus ones.
But the egg orientation looks very similar to the one we see in Jurassic Park 3.
Right, the oval egg shapes. Well,
Anyway,
who knows?
but they do have the scariest scene, and they were brought to life with a combination of you know rubber suits, puppets with weighted heads, and CG. Like the scene when they're barking for help, that's a man in a suit, John Rosencrantz, the thinnest guy at Simonton Studios, so he fits inside the raptor suit.
So you'd be surprised at certain shots you'd think, oh, that's totally CG, but nope, that's an actual effect.
Like the point of view of it running at Lex, like you see the feet on the ground, an actual foot rig they made.
And and it's still also very poignant that they made these things look very sleek and realistic, but also have that sense of danger. It's these like even with the Dilophosaur, you could say like, oh, it looks adorable and cute, and then in that moment where it just frills out, it's like, oh, okay, that's scary. And no, these things are like danger on sight. Do not approach. Do not touch. Do not interact with. Do not give your food to them
On top
because
of that,
you are food.
like one of my earliest memories is having some bed sheets, and it's based off of old concept art of the raptor biting against the fence with other raptor behind it. I think it's in this book actually. um, Crash McCreary. Here it is. This was actually on a blanket back in the day. Right here, you see it?
Oh yeah, I see it.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty wicked.
But yeah, these guys were the main. Like the T Rex is not a villain. T Rex just eats you with like the shark and Jaws. But this thing, it's kind of like the Hannibal Lecter of dinosaurs. Well, in
It will
the
literally
movie.
stare you down, waiting as like freaking coral snake would slither by your eye.
But yeah, and plus they also have the most epic song. That there's the predatory theme, but it became known as the raptor theme. That bom 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 boom. But so um, the last 15 minutes of this movie is dedicated to the raptors, and the big one is super persistent. Like she has a look on her face where she's like you at times. Like when she hits her head and she sees them running off, she has this look on her face of like, oh, she's gonna make sure she gets them.
And funny enough, one of the actors gets subdued by being locked in a freezer, and it seems we'll get to see what their fate is in that Jurassic Park survival game if it ever comes out. But even just having one raptor chasing you, that's scary enough. So
But having
got
two,
quite a big anticipation for that one. And so obviously we've been leaving out one particular big
well,
star.
let me just show
You know,
you.
there's
I'm gonna chance it, but I'm gonna show you my one favorite shot with the raptor that I love it every time I see it.
eh, let's no,
There it
don't
is.
chance it,
There
please.
it is. There it is. There it is. When the DNA slice, but yeah, okay. All right. Um, so the big star probably it's on the poster. It's the darn outline. It's the skeleton. It's the tyrant king, or in this case, queen of dinosaurs, the Tyrannosaurus.
And the moment that she gets out of her cage is pretty much all anyone ever thinks of when they think of Jurassic Park. When they talk about Jurassic Park, they'll think of, oh, the Tyrannosaurus like out in the rain, interact with the power down jeeps.
Actually, if you look at our thumbnail, the biggest dinosaur per ratio is the T Rex. Like, look at our thumbnail.
like it's literally no accident. It's literally all anyone thinks of when they think of this movie. It's like they'll think of how the T-Rex chased down Ellie and Muldoon and Ian in the Jeep, where you get the iconic like objects in the view are closer than they appear, which would funny enough get homaged in Toy Story 2 of all places. You think of Tyrannosaurus is actually the one that the Gallimimus are running away from, and Tim has that look of like, oh, look at all the blood.
And like Steven famously
It literally
said,
gets
he
it
said
literally gets the big heroic moment.
he said the audience is gonna hate me if I don't show them the T-Rex one more time. So he changed his ending because originally Grant was supposed to shoot the fossils, and the fossils would have fallen on top of the raptors, showing you how like the real prehistory destroys these false creations. A little meta, but you know it wasn't quite the final note Steven wanted. So when the CG was getting good, he thought, I'm gonna give him the T Rex effect. Even one of the guys asked, well, how does the T Rex get inside? And he thought, how does it get in the building? But T Rex says, no, he comes left of frame and bites the raptor. And he goes, that's how the T Rex kind of got into the movie, basically. It's a bit of a ninja. In fact, it's so funny how that moment is so iconic that even Nostalgia Critic turned a song around that every time the T-Rex shows up.
I'm a motherfucking T-Rex.
And God, that joke is a decade old now, but still makes me laugh.
Oh my god.
Because I remember because he was reviewing all the movies in the lead up to Jurassic World, and that was the running theme. Was the I'll get back.
Sex says theirs is the vibration of the cup of water. Yes, that's also the big moment that people think of when they think of the Jurassic Park movie. They also said, I remember a mutated dinosaur toy lineup.
The chaos effect.
Well, you gotta milk the whole series somehow, but to be fair, any any movies that come out eventually will have a second, uh, more deadly lineup. Sure,
But
because I've seen it happen with the World Series, and it's good.
yeah, but so what were we saying? Oh yeah, the Tyrannosaurus has an iconic sound, an iconic look, just the whole scene, and it's not really evil when when she's doing her stuff. In fact, you're kind of cheering that she takes out the lawyer, even though, well, poor bastard. But
It's basically like encountering a bear in the wilderness.
and again,
It's like you don't mess with it, but it's gonna do what it does to on instinct in the wild.
I mean, one scene that always looked realistic to me is the scene when um, she starts turning the explorer, and Lex and Alan are like running with it to avoid getting smashed, and they look up and there's this over their shoulder shot where you look up and you see the Rex in the rain make snarling. She does like a little. It's before she does her second, head nod. So you said you had a thought from earlier that you wanted to bring up again when
Oh
it came to
yes,
talking to the
so
Rex.
people like to point out that the T-Rex having uh visions based on movement, but why couldn't it just smelled them when they were literally like right in front of its snout? And I'd argue it's literally raining right now. It would probably be thrown off by the scent of rain. Because everyone knows rain has a scent, so it's probably like being confused a little bit of all the rain like drenching down on them.
Mhm. But yeah,
It didn't occur to me until then. It's like, oh yeah, why couldn't it have spelled this? Like, well, obviously the author just had to make a dramatic moment for them to not get eaten in the moment.
well, fun fact: Stan Winston said when they made this thing, it has specific machines, specific weight calibrations, and he told Steven, "Don't get this thing wet." So of course, on the day we're shooting it, he gets it all the rain on it, but it looks so good. He said it's actually acting. He said, so he said that when the when the motion would get messed up by the rain, it would start to shudder. So it looks like he's shaking from being cold. So they have to get these big squeegees and towels and just beat that sucker dry. But
But yeah, it does lead to help with the visual effects having to do a lot of the other half of the work because obviously this is probably Steven's revenge for the shark not working in Jaws. They fine, I'll just make the the effect not going to work out too well in the rain, well, I'm just going to make sure the visual effect guys make it work.
But yeah, so it's funny, and Rexy's a menace throughout the rest of the movie because she chases Ian and Mulder and Ellie in the Jeep, of course, and when they're at the fence, they're thinking, okay, we'll take our time with this. When they hear Rexy being close by, they decide, oh, hightail it over the fence. And of course, Rexy does get the iconic shot where after saving them from the raptors, she just tosses it into the skeleton. And it's funny, when Steven changed his mind for the ending, they filmed all that not even knowing if they could even film the CG. They thought, well, we've kind of gotten our stride with the CG. Let's see if we can make this work. And it's on the poster of
The integration of it looks so good.
like just you. I don't even have to pull up the picture. You all know the shot when dinosaurs ruled the earth as Rexy roars in the air.
And so yeah, all these dinosaurs really definitely came through, and the cast pulled through, and obviously the storytelling. And there's one a certain aspect that I think, especially with any Steven Spielberg project, it needs a nice little bow to wrap everything up very nicely,
Ah, yes.
and it would be one Sir John Williams.
I have a section right here. So it's funny. They're doing at this point they finished production and doing post. Steven had to go to do Schindler's List over there in Europe, so he wasn't there for the recording. But he would get tapes of Johnny Williams' score, and it would just make him emotional. So he said that he removed himself from the project near completion. He said, I generally find it better not to read the script. Reading a script and then seeing the film is rather like reading a novel than seeing the film version of that novel. It never looks like you saw in your mind's eye, so I prefer not to know what it's about. So just go into a darkened room and see the first cut and experience the film in terms of itself. So he did the full orchestra at the end of March with Kathleen Kennedy to take over while Steven was in Prague. So Kennedy kept Spielberg in the loop by having it transferred on audio tape. So Kennedy was a big hand in keeping things going forward. She's one of the best producers in the business, and when her name pops up, she wasn't just the coffee girl. She wasn't just, oh, I put my name on there. She did shit to get her name on that producer board.
I am not going to remind people on this tour to not slander or throw words on her for whatever current state anything is going on right now. But seriously, Kathleen actually got where she got to now.
But yeah.
Not by just coasting on, she got shit done.
Mm-hmm. So, but Johnny said how he approached things like the Brachiosaur almost like a religious experience. So it has like a choir. So it's almost like going to church when you see that scene when Welcome to Jurassic Park. And of course he has like...
Oh yeah, I definitely get that vibe.
He has like this more, brasso scariness for like tense scenes, like with like the Jeep coming down on them or running away from the T-Rex. And he has like a horror, almost low bellows contrabass theme for the Raptors with the theme when they're stalking them at the end. But I think what doesn't get enough credit is he has this use of electronic sounds during the techno heist during Dennis Steals the Embryos. I can't play the clip because that will definitely get us copyrighted, but it is, the track I listened to the most was the Dennis Steals the Embryo because it's like a techno thriller. You get a little ba-dum, bum, 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 ba-dum, bum. And you have the real horns coming in, but it's like this electronic little bass of, I can't describe it. You know what it is when you watch the movie when he steals the shit. But
yeah.
But the iconic theme is the Journey to the Island theme, where it goes into that bum 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 bum. Like that's like the song people know.
It's funny. I always juggle between that one or like the exit song as the Jurassic Park theme.
Which I love the parody of it. Holy fucking shit! It's a dinosaur. But yeah. And but yeah, like it's just, and the music does really help. There's a part from the Petticoat Lane that's reprises when Hammond is going away, and even on rewatch, it just hits me because it's like he's like a man waking up from a dream, and when Grant touches his hand, it's like he snapped awake from that dream, and the brackies are like calling to him, like stay, stay, and he can't. And the music hits at the right moment at that point. And even right now, as I'm describing it, you kind of hear it in my voice, like it gets more profound the older I get watching that scene for some reason.
like the man really deserved his retirement. I'm just saying it right now.
But like the one arrangement people love playing is the Welcome to Jurassic Park 7 minute. Um, is the 7 minute song that plays at the very end. It starts with the piano, the doo doo doo. Then it goes into the full blown orchestra, a reprise of the Brachiosaur theme. Then it turns into the island theme, the adventure theme, and then it ends with the piano theme. It ends with a somber, almost menacing theme. Like you'll hear the doo doo doo, but you hear the Raptor theme played on a soft horn in major key, and it has a bit of unease at the end. Again, one of the first CDs I ever owned was a Jurassic Park CD. I no longer have it, but I used to listen to the crap out of that thing.
I'm sure if you took your time, you'd probably get yourself another copy to just indulge in.
Well, they made special editions of that sucker. I'd pay top dollar for that. Speaking of which,
Oh, the boom of that
like-
brand.
even Gennaro said people will pay for it, and then there's the merchandising, which, as we love quoting Spaceballs,
Merchandising! Where the real money from the movie is made.
Jurassic Park the lunchbox, Jurassic Park the video game, Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park action figures!
Jurassic-
Jurassic Park the...
We haven't gotten the flamethrower yet. But
Have you actually used flamethrower in one of these movies? I have to think. Probably. Is it in one of the World movies? No,
Maybe.
that...
yes, for the friggin' Locust and Dominion.
Oh, yeah.
But yes, there was a Kenner Toys made some of the most iconic dinosaur toys out there with their rubber real skin. And I remember this meme, but it holds true. Dinosaurs died and turned into oil. Petrol oil is used to make rubber. Rubber is used to make dinosaurs. So in a way, are you actually playing with a real dinosaur?
Well, shit, now that you mention it, I can't stop thinking about it now.
But oh my gosh, I never got any of the Jurassic Park toys when they were new, but I did buy some recently on rewatch, and they've done some retro lines where Mattel's done this 30th anniversary celebration where they've recreated some of the iconic
Target exclusive, but no one's complaining. No one's complaining. Okay.
Hey, Walmart gets some Star Wars exclusives, so tit for tat. Anyway, but this sucker took off like a rocket. It was one of the highest grossing films of '93, and it
launched a good series of video games, which, funny enough, I think Spielberg actually worked closely with those video games that most movie tie-ins ever got at that point.
Yeah, but if you want to hear about
movie tie-ins are notorious at that, but if you want a more detailed look at that, go visit Game Apologists on his Jurassic Park.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. And, but yeah, I had the bed sheets, I had some shirts. Like, I did have Jurassic Park stuff, and it was a famous tagline where they say, "Look for the mark of Jurassic Park," and it's like that stylized JP.
Which continues to this day, even though it also changes to the JW. But anytime you see merchandise like that, even the action figures, you know that those are Jurassic. Especially given that to this day they're still selling like old-fashioned type of dinos for on the cheap for little kids. But you know exactly a Jurassic Park toy when you see one. It's kind of like it's. So most people to this day will argue that Jurassic Park is like the bane of every actual paleontologist, considering the fact that the dinosaurs don't look exactly like what dinosaurs actually look now. But it's kind of moot given the fact that those dinosaurs you see in those movies are literally what you think of when you think of Jurassic Park. So it's its own identity. It stands out on its own. You can work if you want to make dinosaurs look feathery and all that. I'm sure you can make it uh, look cool and scary, but uh, you'll never be able to capture the lightning in a bottle that Jurassic Park got
Well, another
in
part
their
of its
designs.
another part of its legacy was the Jurassic Park the ride was made into a real thing.
Oh yes, me and Jonesy have written versions of that ride. Jonesy, but very especially, got to ride the original California one before it got its facelift.
This shirt I'm wearing right now is actually from that ride, Countdown to Extinction. Jurassic with the ride from June 1996 to September 2018.
And to this day, I believe the Florida one, which I've written on, is still themed exactly to Jurassic Park, even though literally that same park in Florida, they've right across. You got the very well beloved Velocicoaster that's just themed to Jurassic World.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it's mostly done to the Jurassic Park in the Florida for that river adventure ride is kind of fix up the animatronics because they've definitely showed their age the last time I went there. Because they'll kind of look like they're kind of stiff and kind of like gotta crick my neck
So you said
and all that.
what comes next? Well, obviously, if a movie makes that much money and is that successful, a sequel isn't bound. In fact, it's one of the few times Crichton had written a sequel to anything because Jurassic Park did so well.
It's funny given the fact that what I have on Wikipedia here, he kind of left it off ambiguously. It's like that Alan wakes up at the hospital and the doctor there kind of mentions like, oh, by the way, we got some reports of some animals that are kind of migrated. Do you know anything about that? So that book kind of unironically predicted the events of, essentially it's the ending for the upcoming Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom.
And they
Funny enough.
practically nuked Isla Nublar. There's a graphic scene where the military just napalms
Oh,
the
they didn't
place.
nuke it. They napalmed that sucker. So those polar dinos got firebombed essentially.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, but his point is though,
It's just why when he made the sequel, it's like, well, okay, I nuked this first time. Then what if they made what if they had like an actual factory floor uh island? So, yeah, that's how I'll write out myself out of this.
yeah. So the point is though, that's gonna
Me
come
and
up.
Malcolm, on the other hand, I'll just have to make a hand wave. It's like, whatever, you're here. Let's just get on with it.
Yeah. And what are our thoughts? So, I think you can tell by the way we gushed about things that we love that this movie, 30 years later, still has its hold on us, and we're getting a seventh sequel for crying out loud.
Oh, it's Ian pointed out Steven Spielberg's first non-Indiana Jones sequel they worked on with Lost World.
Eating the lysine
Yeah,
plants. Yeah.
up until now, up until then, really the only sequels that Spielberg's worked on is the Indiana Jones stuff and Lost World.
He didn't do Jaws,
Although
that's
we'll,
for sure.
although we'll have to see if he gets around doing that Ready Player 2 movie. But
We'll see.
yeah.
But it's clear that we
I
love this
I
movie.
so, so my thoughts. I don't have as grand as tide of childhood nostalgia as Jonesy does, because again, as I said, I was a baby when that happened, and my first go into this franchise wouldn't be until the next time we delve into this. But even when I revisited this movie for third one, there was something that kind of got me about it. There was something that just kind of, oh, okay, so they had this grand idea, then it really went to the pits in like a fortnight.
But yeah, it's just it's a lasting legacy that probably didn't mean to start a franchise, but it is, and it's endured. It's I think for our generation, it's the closest we'll get to a Star Wars. I mean, I'm sure there's other movies that would like to get to that fame. I'm sure James Cameron's Avatar would like to be up there, but Jurassic Park was the progenitor of all that kind of stuff.
Nearly to the point where when its return with Jurassic World came, it pretty much dominated the first half of 2015. Up until that space opera came along and said, "Hey, thanks for holding the first place podium. I'll just take it from here."
Hmm. But yeah, so So this is the start of our tour. We're about to be turning back over, and you want to go ahead and close this off?
Ah, yes. Well, thank you all once again for joining us tonight. This concludes our tour of Isa's new bar for today. So come back next time as we delve into Isa Sorna, aka Site B, The Lost World, a Jurassic Park.
And this is Johnny Cat 79, aka Chris, signing off with my usual co-host Erica, aka Dark Neon.
Well, life finds a way. And hopefully this stream does too.
All right, have a good one.
Take care. Bye bye.
Good night.
Dodson! Dodson! We've got Dodson here! See, nobody cares.